This time, Gu Jianxian had set off from Sword Union's homestar for Azure Tree Star on some kind of business, and Yushi, He Zhao, and He Miao had followed along. Never had they imagined they would get involved in such a battle and almost lose their lives. After finishing her story, He Zhao did not ask Yang Kai about his experiences over the years, as she was aware her status and identity were not high enough to know. Yang Kai nodded faintly and said, "By the way, how much do you know about your Young Union Master, Gu Jianxian?" "Young Union Master?" He Zhao was startled. "Does Big Brother Yang want to know more about the Young Union Master?" And Yang Kai was satisfied seeing her understand his intent. "Tell me whatever is convenient for you to disclose." He Zhao smiled lightly. "I don't know much actually, so there's nothing inconvenient to talk about. Young Union Master can be said to be the most talented genius in Sword Union in the past 1,000 years. He is currently less than 60 but has already reached the peak of the Origin Realm. There are also rumors that he will be able to break through to the Origin King Realm within 3 to 5 years. Yang Kai nodded while sipping his tea, motioning her to continue speaking with his eyes. He had already learned this information from Lu Dong before. Young Union Master is humble, respectful, and righteous. He is the successor Union Master has placed his hopes on. Not only is his cultivation high, but his combat strength is also excellent as well. It seems that only Shui Yu, Hong Luo Chamber of Commerce's third young master, and Purple Star's Zidong are able to compete with him among the younger generation of the star field. Is that so? Hearing this, another person suddenly appeared in Yang Kai's mind. Su Bin Bai, the interesting young man Yang Kai met outside Green Mountain's Star's Blood Prison that day. It was said that he was the disciple of an Origin King Realm master named Wu Dao. This Wu Dao's cultivation was so profound that even Green Mountain's Star's Star Master Luo Hai was extremely respectful of him, addressing him as Senior Wu Dao. Wu Dao was no doubt a genuine third-order Origin King and one of the divine dragons who one could never catch sight of. The disciple of such a person could not be worse than Gu Jianxian, Shui Yu, or Zidong, perhaps even slightly stronger, but this thought lingered in Yang Kai's mind for just a second, and he did not enunciate it. He Zhao had lived in Sword Union for a long time and her strength was not very high, so the things she had come into contact with were quite limited, making her vision somewhat narrow. Young Union Master's reputation in Sword Union is also excellent. If not, Honored Master would not have chosen to follow him. And Young Union Master is always accompanied by his left and right sword servants. I've heard that they have cultivated together since childhood and are like brother and sisters. Probably not just brother and sisters, Yang Kai chuckled. When the left and right sword servants looked at Gu Jianxian, there was clearly more than just friendship in their eyes. He Zhao pursed her lips as a trace of crimson filled her cheeks. Squeezing her dress slightly, she didn't respond to Yang Kai's comment and instead continued. The left sword servant is called Lingyu while the right sword servant is called Nxing. Young Union Master and his left and right sword servants have cultivated a profound method together known as the Sun, Moon, and Stars secret techniques. Combined, the three of them can exert a combat power far beyond their own cultivation level. However, even without the assistance of his left and right sword servants, the personal combat power of the Young Union Master alone is very strong, and an ordinary third-order Origin returning realm cannot possibly be his opponent. Yang Kai nodded in agreement. Whether a cultivator was powerful or not was often discernible at a glance. Gu Jianxian gave Yang Kai a powerful feeling. Clearly, Gu Jianxian belonged to the elite of the elite. This is everything I know. After He Zhao finished speaking, she looked towards Yang Kai respectfully, as if waiting for his next instructions. Then Gu Jianxian's trip to Azure Tree Star this time. Do you know what its purpose is? We were simply following orders. We didn't even know where we were sailing to until Young Union Master mentioned it. He Zhao shook her head. Big Brother Yang, you are asking so many questions. So are you planning on being enemies with Young Union Master? He Miao asked with some worry. Yang Kai laughed and shook his head. Why would I? There's no grudge between us, so how could I become Gu Jianxian's enemy? Besides, Gu Jianxian should be a good person. However, since I have boarded his starship, I naturally want to learn more about him. You don't need to be so nervous. Oh. He Miao relaxed greatly while her little hand patted her rather well-endowed peaks, a relieved expression filling her face. He Zhao and He Miao were only third-order Saint Kings, and although they were somewhat young, they had a chance of becoming pillars of Sword Union in the years to come, but that was a matter for the future. With their current cultivation and status, they naturally did not have access to much high-level information. To them, their current lives could be summed up in 2 words. Follow orders. There was no need to ask anything or even think too much. They simply needed to follow orders from above. Even if it was a task which would cost them their lives, they had no choice but to obey. This was the sorrowful fate of cultivators at the bottom of great forces. These cultivators seemed to receive excellent shelter, but they lost some of their freedom in exchange. If Xianxia really wanted to be an enemy of Xianxia, He Zhao and He Miao would be put in a difficult position. Afterwards, Xianxia continued his conversation with He Zhao and He Miao before asking them to leave. Big brother Yang. Before leaving though, He Zhao suddenly turned around and called out, "Is there something else?" Xianxia looked at her. He Zhao bit her red lips lightly for a moment before shaking her head. "It's nothing. Please have a good rest. If you need anything, just summon us. We live in the 50th room of this wing." "Sure." Xianxia nodded suspiciously. After sending the sisters off, Xianxia stood there and pondered for a moment. He Zhao must have wanted to say something to him just now, but ultimately decided not to. Although he had only met these 2 sisters twice, after the experience back on the floating continent a couple dozen years ago, sharing adversity together, they could be considered quite close. The encounter this time had reaffirmed their bond of friendship. If He Zhao really asked him for help, Xianxia would not refuse. Unfortunately, it seemed she had concerns of her own and decided not to say anything, making it tricky for Xianxia to ask as well. "Big sister, did you want Big Brother Yang to speak on our behalf?" He Miao asked He Zhao when they returned to their own room. "And?" He Zhao nodded lightly as she said quietly, "Now only Big Brother Yang can help us. Even Honored Master is unable to solve this problem. So why didn't you say anything? Big Brother Yang is a good person, so he would definitely not sit back and watch if you asked." "I believe so too." He Zhao sat down on the edge of the bed. "But this matter has nothing to do with him. It's our own affair. Elder sister." He Miao lay down and rested her head on He Zhao's lap while whispering sadly, "If we don't do something, we'll really have to, with that person." He Zhao reached out her hand and brushed He Miao's hair, a trace of sorrow also appearing on her pretty face. "And if it weren't for Senior Qin's shelter all those years ago, we and Honored Master would not have escaped punishment and would perhaps not even be alive today. He is Senior Qin's son, and it is precisely because of this that Honored Master was unable to refuse Senior Qin's proposal. It should be our turn to repay him. Over the years, Senior Qin has done much for us after all. I don't want to." He Miao stood up suddenly and displayed a fit of fierce anger as she clenched her fists and said firmly, "If that day comes, I'll butcher that Qin Chi Yang brat first." He Zhao was startled as she stared at He Miao in shock, quickly shouting, "You're not allowed to talk such nonsense." He Miao pouted but did not speak anymore, sinking back down to the bed and falling into her big sister's lap again. Inside his room, Xianxia had just sat down to meditate again when he heard another knock at the door. This made him frown as he stood up slightly displeased and opened the door only to be met with a glamorous but slightly flustered face. Xianxia was stunned. "Can I come in?" the visitor asked in a low voice as she looked around, seemingly afraid she would be discovered. "What's happening?" Xianxia was even more at a loss. However, seeing the anxious look on the other party's face, he did not refuse, moved to the side, and allowed this visitor to rush into the room, bringing with her a fragrant burst of wind. After closing the door, Xianxia turned to look at this beautiful woman and asked suspiciously, "Lady Yu, is there something you need to discuss with me?" The person who had come was surprisingly the honored master of He Zhao and He Miao, Yu Shi. Xianxia was quite confused. The 2 sisters had only just left, but now their honored master had followed on their heels. What was happening here? If outsiders noticed this scene, It would certainly generate rumors about something unspeakable and shameful happening between him and these three. This mistress greets young Master Yang. Yushi elegantly bowed and lightly opened her lips, saying, "This mistress thanks young Master Yang for his life-saving grace." "Speak frankly?" Yang Kai looked at her lightly. Yushi's face became stiff, but soon she wore a bitter smile, bit her lips and hesitated for a moment before bluntly saying, "This mistress wants to ask young Master Yang to show mercy and save Hizeo and He Miao from a miserable fate." "What's happening to them?" Yang Kai frowned. "From what I can tell, they seem quite well without any signs of illness or injury. Is there some matter they need saving from?" "It is true they are not ill or injured." Yushi shook her head. "It's just that one of them must marry a strange man. One who is not normal." Yang Kai squinted and stared straight at Yushi. The force behind his gaze caused Yushi to feel quite pressured, and her expression gradually became tense, a look of embarrassment and guilt flashing across her face. But soon, she raised her eyes again and stared straight at Yang Kai. "Have a seat first, then we can talk." To Yushi's surprise, Yang Kai motioned to her to sit down, then poured her a cup of tea. "Many thanks." Yushi took a deep breath and took a seat. "I'll need you to explain in more detail." Yang Kai sat on the other side and asked. Yushi nodded. "I should have made myself clearer. It's like this." After listening to her speak, Yang Kai understood the whole story. This matter was related to the events of that year. When Yang Kai had first met Yushi, she was a third-order Saint King and commanded a Saint King grade starship charged with performing some low-risk tasks in the starfield. During the events of that year, Sword Union had suffered huge losses. In the end, only Yushi, Hizeo, and He Miao had survived. After returning to Sword Union's home star, they faced a disaster they were unable to resolve. According to the Union's laws, the typical punishment would be execution to serve as a warning to others, or else to abolish her cultivation and expel her from Sword Union. As for Hizeo and He Miao, they would likely degenerate into servants. At the last moment, though, an elder from Sword Union named Qin Wu Hui had spoken on their behalf and saved their lives and status. Qin Wu Hui was a master who followed Gu Jianxian, and as such Yushi, Hizeo, and He Miao became indirectly connected to Gu Jianxian. Qin Wu Hui was a good-natured person, and even after speaking up to defend Yushi and her disciples, he had not tried to threaten or abuse them in any way. In fact, he had taken care of the master and disciples over the years, causing the latter to be extremely grateful to him. However, Qin Wu Hui had a prodigal son named Qin Qiyang. This boy relied on his father's prestige to run rampant on Sword Union's home star. Although it could not be said he was completely lawless, he was certainly not a good thing either. Qin Wu Hui accompanied and assisted Gu Jianxian almost all the time and neglected to discipline his own son, simply allowing matters to drift. On Sword Union's home star, however, there were many people of high status and strength, and one day, Qin Qiyang provoked an opponent he should not have. After falling into a trap, although he fought fiercely and managed to preserve his life, Qin Yang suffered a serious wound to his soul which essentially turned him into a fool. Although his son had always been a good-for-nothing, he was still his son in the end. When Qin Qiyang degenerated into an idiot, Qin Wu Hui was extremely distressed, but surprisingly, his boy became much better behaved after the incident and no longer showed any of his previous delinquent tendencies. After many years, Qin Wu Hui was now thinking about finding a marriage partner for his son so he could produce a few heirs. But who would want to marry Qin Qiyang, who had become a fool? Coupled with his previous miscreant reputation, no woman of status would be willing to marry him. Qin Wu Hui's status was not low, so he disdained to arrange a marriage with some ordinary women for his son. Out of desperation, Qin Wu Hui could only target the two sisters Hizeo and He Miao. Obviously, as long as either of the sisters could marry Qin Qiyang and give birth to an heir for him, it would alleviate Qin Wu Hui's concerns. For this purpose, Qin Wu Hui even prepared a very generous amount of compensation. He did not go directly to Yushi to discuss this matter though, and instead reported it to Gu Jianxian directly. In a sense, this approach was quite despicable. Qin Wu Hui also agonized over the matter for a long time before ultimately deciding to put aside his face and act. Qin Wu Hui had followed Gu Jianxian for many years, and was both hardworking and loyal. Now, he simply wanted to arrange a marriage for his son to extend his bloodline, so how could Gu Jianxian refuse? After receiving this request, Gu Jianxian directly summoned Yuxi and told her to discuss with He Zhao and He Miao about which of them would marry Qin Qiyang. With Gu Jianxian interceding, there was simply no room for Yuxi to maneuver. For more than a year, Yuxi had been stalling, and since Qin Wu Hui also knew that his actions were somewhat dishonorable, he did not try to urge her. However, procrastination was not a solution. One day, either He Zhao or He Miao would be forced to accept. Yang Kai's appearance gave Yuxi hope. She couldn't ask Gu Jianxian to break off this affair, and Qin Wu Hui had treated the three of them quite kindly, so refusing was not an option. But Yang Kai was different. Yang Kai was not from Sword Union, and it was obvious that Gu Jianxian wanted to make friends with him. So perhaps just a few words would be enough to solve the tragic future of the two sisters. Because of this consideration, Yuxi had secretly visited Yang Kai to ask him to speak on their behalf. After listening, Yang Kai nodded gently. So that's the situation. He somewhat understood what He Zhao wanted to say before she left. It was likely she wanted to ask for help but was too embarrassed to speak of it. Young Master Yang, can you please show compassion and save those two girls? The two of them have lived a tragic life with no father or mother. This mistress raised them both from infancy till now, treating them as my daughters, and really cannot bear to see them forced into this fiery pit. Yuxi pleaded as she sobbed. Senior Qin has been very kind to us, and if he wanted this mistress to repay him in any other way, this mistress would certainly not refuse. But this is about the future of those two girls, so this mistress really cannot agree. And this matter is not your fault. Yang Kai's speech became milder. When he heard her request before, Yang Kai had misunderstood slightly, but after listening to Yuxi's explanation, he understood that this matter was truly beyond her ability to handle. With Gu Jianxian having spoken, how was she supposed to resist? For Gu Jianxian, satisfying Qin Wu Hui's wishes was naturally the priority. After all, he was not familiar with He Zhao or He Miao. What's more, Qin Wu Hui had prepared plenty of compensation for them. With his identity as a third-order origin returning realm master, the compensation he came up with was surely extremely generous. For an ordinary woman, marrying into the Qin family was akin to flying from the branch to become a phoenix. It could even be said that Gu Jianxian was being a bit inconsiderate in regards to this matter, but with his position and status, his decision was actually quite reasonable. However, inserting himself into this kind of matter rashly also seemed inappropriate, causing Yang Kai to frown. Young Master Yang? Seeing Yang Kai tapping his finger on the table, Yuxi remained silent as long as she could, before she finally couldn't help saying, if young Master Yang can let young Union Master cancel this marriage, this mistress swears that even if she must die the cruelest of deaths, she will find a way to repay you. There's no need to act so seriously. Yang Kai waved his hand. It's just that if I really come forward to resolve this matter, what do you plan to do in the future? Yuxi was dumbfounded when she heard these words and was unable to react for a moment. Let me put it this way. You owe that Qin Wu Hui a great debt of kindness, so if this matter is truly resolved by me, then you three master and disciples will certainly bear the reputation of ingratitude. How do you plan on maintaining a foothold in Sword Union in the future under such circumstances? Not everyone knew or cared for the truth, and many only saw what was on the surface. What Yang Kai said was something that would transpire. Irrelevant cultivators would definitely feel that Yuxi, He Zhao, and He Miao were repaying kindness with scorn. Yuxi thought about the cold glares and whispers behind her back she and her disciples would need to endure from the people of Sword Union in the future and could not help shivering. Suddenly, she seemed to think of something, grit her teeth and declared, if young Master Yang does not object, he might as well directly ask young Union Master for those two girls directly. They only have third-order Saint King cultivations, so the young Union Master will not refuse you. In the future, even if you take them as maids or concubines, it won't matter. Are you serious? Yang Kai was startled. Yuxi smiled. This mistress can see that those two girls have favorable impressions of young Master Yang. so I am sure they will not reject you. After all, young Master Yang is a dragon among men like young Union Master. You're their honored master, how? Yang Kai's face twitched visibly. Then young Master Yang, this matter. Yushi looked at Yang Kai nervously. Before getting Yang Kai's exact answer, she could not rest assured. This matter isn't so easy to manage. Yang Kai frowned. Yushi's heart sank. First, tell me what that Qin Chi Yang's exact situation is, and who is Qin Wu Hui precisely? What is his character like? And what is his status within Gu Jian Xian's ranks? After half an hour, Yushi left Yang Kai's room, and the sorrow which had adorned her brow for the past year had disappeared. Even her footsteps seemed to have become much lighter. Obviously, she received a positive answer. For the next 2 days, the starship sailed towards Azure Tree Star without any more surprises. Yang Kai cultivated quietly in his room while also taking the time to refine a furnace of pills. 2 days later, a knock sounded from the door. After receiving Yang Kai's permission, the door opened and the He Miao sisters walked in. Big Brother Yang, young Union Master, has arranged a banquet. We've been instructed to invite Big Brother Yang, He said. Okay. Yang Kai nodded and stood up. Lead the way ahead. This way, please. He and He Miao immediately walked ahead. After a quick walk through the starship's corridors, the trio arrived at a magnificent hall. Inside this hall were a number of cultivators sitting in 2 rows at a giant table with food and wine arranged in front of them. Gu Jian Xian sat at the head position with a ruddy complexion and his left and right sword servants standing behind him. It seems that after a few days of meditation, Gu Jian Xian had essentially restored himself. Seeing Yang Kai enter, Gu Jian Xian immediately got up and greeted him with a smile. The other cultivators present also quickly stood up and cupped their fists. Many of them only knew about Yang Kai's existence and that he was the one who had slain Li Minghai a few days ago, but had actually not greeted him personally. Seeing even Gu Jian Xian greet this young man so enthusiastically though, none of them dared show a lack of courtesy. Yang Kai did not lack etiquette either and cupped his fists to those in the hall with a smile on his face. Seeing the relaxed and friendly smile on Yang Kai's face gave the Origin returning realm masters present a good impression, feeling that he was powerful but not arrogant. Everyone understood why their young Union Master had taken an interest in him. Brother Yang, over here. Gu Jian Xian beckoned. He and He Miao led Yang Kai to the head of the table where a seat was prepared just below Gu Jian Xian's before they withdrew a step and stood respectfully. After Yang Kai took his seat, Gu Jian Xian smiled heartily. Brother Yang, this Gu has been recovering these past few days and been negligent in his duties as a host. I hope Brother Yang will not take offense. Brother Gu is too serious. Healing should naturally be a priority. Yang Kai nodded slightly. Many thanks for your understanding, Brother Yang. Today's banquet is just a small event to thank Brother Yang for his saving grace. Without you, Ling Yu and Xing and I would have fallen to Old Dog Li's wicked scheme. From now on, Brother Yang is this Gu's friend and benefactor. Many Origin realm masters sitting below had a sharp light flash across their eyes. Gu Jian Xian was a bold and free spirit, but he would never easily utter the word friend. Now that he had spoken so, it meant he was determined to forge a friendly relationship with Yang Kai. Moreover, after the word friend, Gu Jian Xian even went so far as to add the title of benefactor. These Origin realm masters naturally understood what this implied. This glass is to show my respect for Brother Yang. Gu Jian Xian drank his full glass in one go. He immediately stepped forward and filled Yang Kai's wine glass before stepping back while still holding the pitcher, fulfilling the role of a maid diligently. Yang Kai picked up his glass and said with a smile, with Brother Gu being so straightforward, this Yang won't stand on ceremony. Raising his glass, Yang Kai also drank it down. Good. No one will leave here sober today. Gu Jian Xian laughed. Music played and some young girls walked in from outside the hall one by one and began to sing and dance while waiters carried in a rich assortment of delicacies. The entire hall instantly became lively. The cultivators gathered in the hall were constantly making toasts, and Yang Kai did not refuse any of them. With a gentle smile and a calm expression, he had created a particularly good impression of himself after exchanging drinks with everyone. From time to time, he would chat and laugh with Gu Jianxian while occasionally glancing at the beautiful dancers. Time flew by, the wine flowed freely, and the atmosphere in the hall became more and more lively. Most cultivators were bold and unrestrained people, so this kind of free banquet naturally became a good place for them to let down their guard and express themselves. The cultivators who followed Gu Jianxian each drank and laughed heartily. Although Gu Jianxian drank a lot, he never became drunk. During this time, he was observing Yang Kai. A dazzling star like Yang Kai suddenly appearing in the star field naturally drew Gu Jianxian's curiosity, and he naturally wanted to use this banquet to try to learn some more about him. To his disappointment, though, Gu Jianxian was not able to learn much. When Yang Kai looked at the young women below who were dancing and singing, his vision remained clear without any obscene desire, and when he drank and chatted with his subordinates, he always behaved following proper decorum. All in all, Yang Kai was mysterious, but worth making friends with. After drinking 3 rounds, Gu Jianxian suddenly said, "Brother Yang, this Gu has an awkward request to make. I wonder if you'd be willing to listen." As soon as this remark came out, the noise in the hall suddenly decreased, and although the cultivators present seemed to be drinking and chatting amongst themselves, all of them undoubtedly heard Gu Jianxian's words and diverted part of their attention to listen. "Brother Gu can speak frankly." Yang Kai put down his glass and smiled lightly. Yang Kai was actually somewhat surprised. Throughout the banquet, he had been looking for a suitable opportunity to discuss his Zhao and He Mao's situation with Gu Jianxian, but before he could find one, Gu Jianxian had spoken up first. He wondered what this awkward request would be. "It's like this," Gu Jianxian wore a solemn expression. "This Gu was ambushed by Old Dog Li and suffered great losses. Although Old Dog Li deserved his death, he was still one of my Sword Union's elders in the end, and the Soul Breaker spear he wielded is a treasure my Sword Union spent countless materials and hired a renowned Origin King-grade artifact refiner to refine. Rather than Old Dog Li's personal property, it is more appropriate to say it belongs to my Sword Union. Now that he is dead, however, it is this Gu's responsibility to bring the Soul Breaker spear back to the home star and inform the Union Master about what has transpired." Having said that, he looked at Yang Kai with some embarrassment. Yang Kai immediately understood what he meant. "Brother Gu wants to take back the Soul Breaker spear?" An awkward smile appeared on Gu Jianxian's face. This Gu knows that this request is truly somewhat shameless. Since Old Dog Li was killed by Brother Yang, the Soul Breaker spear should belong to you, but without the Soul Breaker spear, things will be difficult for this Gu upon his return, which is why I must ask for it back. Of course, this Gu guarantees he will compensate Brother Yang appropriately, so he does not suffer a loss in exchange for the Soul Breaker spear. As for everything else Old Dog Li had on him, Brother Yang is free to keep them. Those things don't belong to my Sword Union. So that's it. Yang Kai gently nodded as he wore a look of contemplation. Gu Jianxian did not urge him and simply waited quietly. Inside the hall, at some point silence had fallen as everyone paid full attention to what was happening at the head of the table. After a while, Yang Kai nodded. "Good. The Soul Breaker spear is an Origin King-grade artifact, and its value is not low. Brother Gu, if I return the Soul Breaker spear to Sword Union, what compensation can I expect? As long as the value does not exceed the value of the Soul Breaker spear itself, this Gu will definitely acquire it for you." Gu Jianxian replied solemnly. Yang Kai chuckled. "Since Brother Gu is so sincere, then this Yang will oblige. In any case, this artifact is of no use to me." He did not use a spear, and there was no one among his close acquaintances who did. So Yang Kai didn't feel much loss returning the Soul Breaker spear. Saying so, Yang Kai took the Soul Breaker spear out of his space ring and placed it in front of Gu Jianxian. Gu Jianxian gestured lightly, and the left sword servant Ling Yu immediately stepped forward and collected this Origin King-grade artifact. For Brother Yang's righteousness, this Gu is grateful. I wonder what kind of compensation Brother Yang wants in return. although my sword union is not the strongest force in the star field, it is also not weak and possesses many rare cultivation resources and materials, pills, and herbs. Even if Brother Yang wants some kind of profound secret art or secret technique, this Gu can find a way to acquire it for you. Yang Kai returning the Soulbreaker Spear without any hesitation was a great relief to Gu Xianxia. So he was prepared to compensate him for his loss as much as possible. Yang Kai smiled lightly and said, "There's no need to rush this discussion of compensation, Brother Gu." "No rush." Gu Xianxia was taken aback. This Yang wants to ask, who here is Senior Qin Wu Hui? Shwa shwa shwa. In the hall, almost everyone's eyes turned towards a certain direction. Following these eyes, Yang Kai's gaze landed on a thin old man wearing unremarkable gray robes who was sitting only a seat below Gu Xianxia. Being able to sit in such a position showed how high this man's status was amongst this group. Yang Kai suddenly calling his name caused Qin Wu Hui to show a puzzled look, and he quickly stood up. Cupping his fists, this old man said, "This old master is Qin Wu Hui." There is no need for young Master Yang to address this old master as senior. What advice does young Master Yang have? Senior is too modest. Yang Kai smiled. Actually, I have something I wish to give senior, and I hope you will not refuse. You wish to give this old master something? Qin Wu Hui was now completely confused. He was certain he had never greeted or even met Yang Kai before today, and had no relationship with him, yet this young man suddenly wanted to give him something. Despite Qin Wu Hui's vast knowledge and experience, Yang Kai's actions left him baffled. Before Qin Wu Hui could comprehend the situation though, Yang Kai tossed a jade bottle over to him. There was no sign of any Saint Qi being used to send this jade bottle, so Qin Wu Hui simply caught it and asked in surprise, "Young Master Yang, this is..." "Senior might as well open it." Yang Kai smiled. "Naturally, you will know what is inside once you do." Qin Wu Hui furrowed his brow and turned his eyes towards Gu Jianxin, but the latter just laughed loudly. Since it was delivered to Elder Qin by Brother Yang, Elder Qin might as well take a look. This young master is also very curious about what Brother Yang is trying to peddle. Qin Wu Hui nodded and opened the bottle before everyone's eyes before pouring out a pill onto his palm. This pill was snow white and only about the size of a bean. But when it appeared before his eyes, Qin Wu Hui's suspicious expression suddenly became rosy, filled with surprise, excitement, and disbelief. Immediately, he brought the pill to his nose, sniffed it carefully, and even licked it with his tongue. He soon exclaimed, "This is a 7 orifices cleansing pill." "What?" Inside the hall, all the gathered cultivators called out in alarm as if an explosion had gone off. All of them gazing towards the pill in Qin Wu Hui's hand in surprise before shifting to Yang Kai, seemingly eagerly waiting for him to answer. Gu Jianxian's eyes flashed as well as he glanced towards Yang Kai thoughtfully and hesitantly asked, "Brother Yang, is this really a 7 orifices cleansing pill?" Senior Qin's vision is quite sharp. This is indeed a 7 orifices cleansing pill. Receiving confirmation from Yang Kai, Qin Wu Hui was so excited that he almost jumped for joy. Even Gu Jianxian drew a deep breath and quickly said, "Brother Yang's means are truly shocking. It's a mere pill." Yang Kai smiled lightly. "Young Master Yang, why would you..." Qin Wu Hui came back to his senses and held the jade bottle tightly in his hand as he looked towards Yang Kai with a puzzled expression, wondering why this unknown young man had suddenly given him this 7 orifices cleansing pill. "I heard that during a battle against a powerful opponent, Senior Qin's son suffered a severe injury to his soul. This 7 orifices cleansing pill should be the appropriate medicine for this situation. Although I dare not say it is a miracle cure, if used in conjunction with appropriate treatment, it should be able to fully restore young Lord Qin's soul over time." Yang Kai looked at Qin Wu Hui with a smile. Qin Wu Hui looked at Yang Kai with a face full of excitement. What happened to Qin Qiang had become something of a heart demon to him, and he had been searching for a pill to treat his good-for-nothing son over the years. Unfortunately, even with his capabilities and Gu Jianxian's backing, Qin Wu Hui had been unsuccessful in his attempts so far. Injuries to the soul were far more difficult to treat than those to the body, and only some extremely special pills would be effective. If it was only a minor injury, things wouldn't be quite so difficult. But Qin Qiang had been wounded so badly that he had degenerated into an idiot, which was a grave injury. According to Qin Wu Hui's research, there were only a few pills in existence that could completely heal this kind of injury, but most of those pills were extinct, with either their recipe having been lost to history or the materials required to refine them having disappeared. The 7 Orifices Cleansing Pill was one such pill. Qin Wu Hui was able to recognize this pill immediately because he had been constantly searching through ancient books these past few years. He also knew that in order to refine this kind of pill, one needed to use the monster core of a 7-colored elk. The 7-colored elk was an ancient exotic monster beast that had long ago gone extinct in the star field. It was now impossible to find one anywhere. Even if the monster core of a 7-colored elk could somehow be found, it was also an essential component in refining treasures like the 10,000-year incense. So who would use it to refine a mere 7 Orifices Cleansing Pill? Yet now, Yang Kai had suddenly taken one out. Qin Wu Hui gripped the jade bottle tightly as his lips trembled, now knowing what to say. Brother Yang, I heard that this 7 Orifices Cleansing Pill is an ancient pill which can even enhance a cultivator's comprehension and aptitude if taken. Is this true? Gu Jian suddenly asked. Enhancing comprehension and aptitude would classify this pill as a heaven-defying treasure. Generally speaking, qualities like aptitude and talent were innate and could not be changed by external forces unless one had some kind of extraordinary opportunity. As such, after hearing Gu Jian's words, all the cultivators in the room were thoroughly shocked as they realized that the true value of this pill was actually far higher than the Origin King Grade Soulbreaker Spear. An artifact was only an external tool and could not fundamentally change a cultivator's ability like their aptitude or talent could. The more valuable item was obvious. Yang Kai laughed loudly. Brother Gu believes this kind of rumor? The 7 Orifices Cleansing Pill is indeed quite good. But it is not heaven-defying to such an extent. As far as I know, this pill does not affect one's comprehension or aptitude, but it is the perfect medicine for healing one's soul. So that's how it is. If Brother Yang knows much about the alchemic way, could you perhaps also be an alchemist? Gu Jian's eyes lit up. Yang Kai chuckled and shook his head. I am not an alchemist. This pill is something I obtained by chance in the Emperor Garden. He had already come up with an excuse for the origin of this pill. The Emperor Garden. Qin Wu Hui gasped as he realized once again how precious this pill was. Is that so? Gu Jian also looked relieved. Only in a place like the Emperor Garden would such an ancient pill exist. It seems that Brother Yang went to explore the Emperor Garden when it opened a few years ago. Yes. Indeed. A look of desire flashed across Gu Jian's face, but he soon sighed. When the Emperor Garden opened, this Gu was in the middle of a critical retreat and could not enter. It's a shame if this Gu had gone. He may have been able to befriend Brother Yang a few years ago. It's not too late now, Yang Kai smiled. True. The regretful expression on Gu Jian's face disappeared and was replaced with a smile. Young Master Yang. Qin Wu Hui stood tall with an expression of hesitation on his face. This Qin is undeserving of such a gift. Senior need not speak so. Yang Kai interrupted him. Giving this 7 Orifices Cleansing Pill to Senior Qin is actually because I need Senior Qin's assistance with something. Please name it, Young Master Yang. Qin Wu Hui said hurriedly. He was actually afraid that Yang Kai would not ask him for something in return. There was no such thing as rewards for no effort. This 7 Orifices Cleansing Pill was invaluable and not something that could be given away casually. So hearing Yang Kai had something he wanted in return allowed Qin Wu Hui to relax somewhat. It's like this, Yang Kai mused. As Senior knows, He Zhao and He Miao are old acquaintances of mine that I met and got to know dozens of years ago. Meeting them again in this vast star field can be considered a kind of fate. However, I've recently learned that they have a somewhat complicated relationship with young Lord Qin. Yang Kai did not go on because he believed Gu Jian and Qin Wu Hui would be able to understand his meaning from just this. As for the He sisters who were standing behind Yang Kai, their eyes widened after a moment of shock, and their faces filled with a pleasant surprise. Even their breathing quickened slightly. So that's it. Gu Jianxian grinned meaningfully, as if he had learned some kind of special secret. Qin Wu Hui showed a look of embarrassment and guilt on his face and quickly cupped his fists. This matter stemmed from this old master's selfishness, forcing He Zhao and He Miao against their wishes into an unfortunate decision. On the other hand, young Master Yang is so benevolent and righteous it brings shame to this old master's heart. Having received this ancient pill which can help my good-for-nothing son recover, this old master guarantees that the previous agreement will be cancelled. Many thanks, Senior. Yang Kai picked up his glass and stood, smiling. Senior is a straightforward and upright man. This cup is Junior's respect for Senior. I would not dare accept. Qin Wu Hui also raised his glass quickly and with a solemn expression vowed. My son was ignorant and the disaster he suffered was deserved. Now that young Master Yang has provided a chance for him to recover, this old master has nothing but thanks to offer. This old master also promises he will discipline his son in the future and set him on the righteous path, so as not to disappoint young Master Yang's benevolence. The two drank their glasses of wine before Yang Kai took his seat again. In a seat in the corner of the hall, Yushi cast a grateful look towards Yang Kai. She never expected that Yang Kai could solve this matter so easily. Originally, it seemed like a peaceful resolution had been impossible, as no matter how highly Gu Jianxian regarded Yang Kai, it would be a huge loss of face to side with him over a loyal subordinate like Qin Wu Hui, while doing the opposite would not have yielded any good results either. However, Yang Kai had managed to sweep this problem away without causing Qin Wu Hui to lose any face with a single pill, instead even gaining significantly. Could be said that everyone was happy with this arrangement. It's just, this kind of price was something only Yang Kai could take out casually. He Zhao, He Miao. Qin Wu Hui did not immediately take a seat and instead called out to the two sisters before waving his hand and sending two streams of light towards them. The two sisters had yet to recover from their excitement and joy and only reflexively grasped the two streams of light in their hands before turning their attention to Qin Wu Hui. This old master has troubled you this past year. Accept these as compensation. I hope you can assist the young master with all your heart in the future and not bear a grudge against this old master. Qin Wu Hui said sincerely. Disciple would not dare. Disciple thanks Elder Qin for his generous reward. He Zhao and He Miao bowed and spoke in unison before taking a look at what exactly they had been given. After a glance, the two discovered that they were actually holding a pair of origin-grade mid-rank artifacts. It was two identical scimitars that seemed to be capable of joining into one to form a single round flying blade. With their cultivation and status, it was basically impossible for them to obtain origin-grade mid-rank artifacts unless they were gifted by their honored masters or an elder. However, Yushi herself was not rich, so how could she provide the two sisters with such powerful artifacts? Only someone like Qin Wu Hui could casually pull out and give away two origin-grade mid-rank artifacts. The two sisters understood that this kind of treatment was all due to Yang Kai. Without Yang Kai, how could Qin Wu Hui have given them two artifacts so freely? Standing behind Yang Kai, staring at his back, both sisters' beautiful eyes overflowed with gratitude. Brother Yang. Gu Jianxian smiled bitterly to the side as he rubbed his forehead lightly and said, You doing this makes this Gu wonder how he is going to compensate you. We haven't even finished discussing the Soulbreaker Spear either. He had to compensate Yang Kai for the loss of the Soulbreaker Spear. Yet instead of making a request, Yang Kai had sent out another gift to Qin Wu Hui. While the exchange between Yang Kai and Qin Wu Hui might seem like a fair deal on the surface, as long as they were slightly discerning, anyone could see that Yang Kai had suffered a huge loss. After all, whether it was Qin Wu Hui, He Zhao, or He Miao, they were all members of Sword Union. Yang Kai had gifted a pill but received nothing in return. What's more, the pill he delivered was an ancient one that could no longer be refined. As such, Gu Jianxian suddenly felt that he owed Yang Kai greatly. Brother Yang, we should discuss this matter now. What kind of compensation do you want? Please do not hesitate. This Gu is ready to lose a pound of flesh to you. Gu Jianxian joked. There's no need to worry so much. Yang Kai smiled. Actually, I have already thought about what I'd like as compensation and for Brother Gu. It should be a simple matter. Oh? Please do explain. Gu Jianxan put on a serious face as everyone else in the hall also looked curiously towards Yang Kai. Everyone wanted to know what he would ask for, especially Qin Wu Hui, who seemed determined to fulfill any request Yang Kai made. Our destination for this trip is Azure Tree Star, right? Yang Kai asked. Indeed. And this Azure Tree Star is under the direct control of Sword Union? Yes. Azure Tree is under the jurisdiction of my Sword Union, Gu Jianxia said proudly. Regarding cultivation stars like Azure Tree Star, my Sword Union controls 3. Then this will be simple. Yang Kai smiled lightly. I want a site covering a radius of 10,000 kilometers. And I do not need it to be a particularly rich region. Just so long as it is not barren, it will be fine. 10,000 kilometers? Gu Jianxia frowned. 5,000 kilometers is also fine, Yang Kai added. Ha ha ha. Brother Yang is far too polite. Forget 10,000 kilometers. Even 100,000 kilometers is fine. Gu Jianxia laughed and patted Yang Kai on the shoulder. 100,000 kilometer territory on Azure Tree Star is nothing. Good. It's settled then. When we arrive on Azure Tree Star, this Gu will have someone arrange it. As for what site Brother Yang would like, you can make your own decision. Yang Kai was stunned for a moment and unable to respond, but soon he smiled and nodded. Since Brother Gu has said this much, this Yang will naturally accept. As the Star Master of Shadowed Star, owning a trivial 100,000 kilometer territory did not have any big impact on him. There's no need for politeness between us. Gu Jianxia stretched out and beckoned, causing Lingyu to immediately step forward to fill his and Yang Kai's glass. Brother Yang, might I ask what you want this site for? Do you plan on settling down on Azure Tree Star? Gu Jianxia asked with joy and expectation. If Yang Kai really was planning to do so, it would undoubtedly be good news for Gu Jianxia. He was still worried about having an opportunity to win over Yang Kai, but if Yang Kai wanted to settle on Azure Tree Star, how could there not be chances to recruit him in the future? I've no intention of settling down, but building a temporary residence might not be a bad idea. Yang Kai smiled meaningfully. Brother Yang is a man of great ambitions, it seems. Brother Gu, might I discuss another business deal with you? Brother Yang, please speak. I need a large amount of space spirit crystals. I don't know if Brother Gu could provide them? Of course. I will purchase them with Saint crystals or exchange them for other valuables, so your Sword Union won't suffer a loss. Brother Yang is too serious, since it's a transaction. This Gu will naturally not refuse. But space spirit crystals are a scarce commodity in the star field, so it will have to wait until we reach Azure Tree Star before I can make some inquiries for you. Then I shall trouble you. The banquet lasted for an entire day, with everyone only departing after becoming thoroughly drunk. Yang Kai returned to his room and washed himself before scattering the effects of the alcohol. Later, Yushi, Hizeo, and He Miao came to visit him together and thank him. To Yang Kai, this was nothing more than a trivial matter. The materials used to refine the 7 orifices cleansing pill were all part of his collection, and the only precious item used was the monster core of the 7-colored elk. Yang Kai had obtained this monster core after killing the 7-colored elk variant in the Emperor Garden, but he had no use for it until now. So it wasn't a loss for him to refine a pill with it this time. But for the master and disciple trio, this was an important matter that greatly affected their futures. Yang Kai could perceive their gratitude, which made him feel slightly complex emotionally. With differences in position and power, the things one could accomplish also differed greatly. Just like how an ant could not shake an iron rod with all its strength, but an ordinary mortal could easily pick it up just by reaching out. After seeing off the master and disciple trio, Yang Kai entered into secluded retreat to cultivate his various secret techniques. Whether it was his golden blood threads, 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art, or Space Force, Yang Kai needed a lot of time to cultivate and consolidate them. The road ahead was very safe. After being attacked by Li Minghai, the starship did not encounter any disturbances, and 20 days later, it arrived safely at Azure Tree Star. In the star field, each cultivation star had its own world principles, so there were inevitably differences between them. Whether it was in terms of world energy or materials produced, or the number of cultivators living on it and the heights they could reach, there was a huge contrast between different cultivation stars. For example, Tongxian Realm's world energy was extremely thin, so cultivators were limited to reaching the Saint Realm. On some cultivation stars, the limit was the Saint King Realm, Origin Returning Realm. Although Shadowed Star had rich world energy, enough to support cultivators reaching the Origin King Realm, because of the world principle suppression, it was impossible for cultivators to spy on the mysteries of the Origin King Realm. Among the many cultivation stars, the most bountiful ones would be taken as home stars of great forces. For example, Water Moon Star of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, Sword Star of Sword Union, Purple Star of Purple Star. These home stars surpassed other cultivation stars in almost all aspects. Azure Tree Star could only be regarded as an ordinary cultivation star with world energy on par with shadowed stars but with less than half the area. In front of the Azure Tree Palace, Gu Jian Xian starship descended slowly towards a square where a group of Sword Union cultivators were waiting to receive him. The leader of this group was a beautiful woman with a stunning face and graceful figure. She was wearing a long black dress and had such abundant peaks that they nearly burst from their restraints. Her waist was slim while her legs were long and slender. On her face, she wore a warm smile that paired perfectly with her bright eyes, while a mature aura lingered about her. As soon as Gu Jian Xian disembarked from the starship, he greeted this woman enthusiastically. "Aunt Lan, it's been a long time." The beautiful woman called Aunt Lan smiled and said, "Greetings, young Union Master. Subordinate has been anticipating your arrival." Saying so, she gave an elegant salute while the cultivators behind her also bowed in greeting. "There are no outsiders here, so why must Aunt Lan act so politely?" Gu Jian Xian smiled and spoke. It was obvious that he had a good relationship with this beautiful woman. "Courtesy cannot be abandoned." Aunt Lan smiled sweetly before her pair of beautiful eyes swept the figures behind Gu Jian Xian. Greeting Qin Wu Hui with a gentle nod, then fixing on Yang Kai for a moment, a hint of suspicion flashing across her face. She was naturally familiar with all of Gu Jian Xian's important subordinates, but Yang Kai was a new face, which she found strange. Using her divine sense, she swept Yang Kai and discovered that he was actually a third-order origin returning realm cultivator, confusing her slightly more. "It's windy outside. Let's go inside before we talk further." Gu Jian Xian did not immediately introduce Yang Kai to this beautiful woman and instead made such a proposal. A gleam flitted across Aunt Lan's eyes before she smiled and nodded. "All right, this way, young Union Master." Saying so, she led the way. Azure Tree Palace was a symbolic building of Azure Tree Star, the headquarters established by Sword Union on Azure Tree Star to manage Azure Tree Star. Yang Kai followed quietly while observing this beautiful woman named Aunt Lan. Although he did not release his divine sense to investigate carefully, judging from the aura he felt from this beautiful woman, he was certain that she was an Origin King. Thinking about it, though, this was appropriate. Azure Tree Star was a critical cultivation star to Sword Union, so it was only natural that an Origin King realm would be stationed here to preside over it. This beautiful woman named Aunt Lan should be a first-order Origin King cultivator, because her aura had similar power to Li Minghai's while at a far cry from Luo Hai's. The Azure Tree Palace occupied a wide area, and after entering it and dispersing the miscellaneous people, Gu Jian Xian finally made introductions. Through Gu Jian Xian's introduction, Yang Kai learned that this beautiful woman was named Luo Lan, and she was indeed a first-order Origin King as he suspected. Aunt Lan is the Star Master of Azure Tree Star, and is responsible for all of Sword Union's matters here, Gu Jian Xian said. "Star Master." Yang Kai's face changed slightly. "Haha, it's not what Brother Yang thinks." Gu Jian Xian seemed to already know what Yang Kai was reacting to and explained with a smile. "This Star Master is not the kind of Star Master you imagine, it's just a title." "So, it's just a title." Yang Kai felt relieved. After all, from what he knew, essentially all Star Masters were third-order Origin Kings, as only they seemed capable of refining a star source somewhat safely. Luo Hai becoming Star Master of Green Mountain Star was entirely thanks to luck, and Yang Yen was the one who helped Yang Kai become Star Master of Shadowed Star. Luo Lan was just a first-order Origin King, so if she had managed to become a genuine Star Master, it could only be said that she obtained the greatest of opportunities. However, if it was just a title given to her, it was not such a big deal. Any Origin King sent by Sword Union to oversee Azure Tree Star would receive the title of Star Master. This Star Master was nothing more than a status indicator and did not come with the conveniences and advantages a true Star Master should have. Little brother seems quite surprised. Could it be you've met a Star Master before? Luolan was a woman with keen intuition and immediately inferred something from the changes in Yang Kai's expression. And I had the honor of meeting Sir Luo Hai on Green Mountain's Star a few years ago, Yang Kai casually explained. Sir Luo Hai, Luolan murmured. A few years ago? It seems that this brother had participated in the blood prison trial. And Brother Yang also participated in the blood prison trial? Gu Jianxian was shocked as he looked at Yang Kai in amazement. It seemed that Yang Kai having his current achievements was not simply a matter of luck. Gu Jianxian learned from Yang Kai that he had explored the Emperor Garden, and now it seems he also underwent the blood prison trial. Surviving and returning from the two fierce lands one after another with just luck was not enough. Took true ability. Impressive. Gu Jianxian expressed his sincere admiration, cupping his fists in respect. Haha. Yang Kai chuckled slightly awkwardly. Unfortunately, it seems that less than 2 years after the blood prison trial, Luo Hai was killed. This incident shocked the entire star field. Luolan muttered quietly. This young master also heard about that incident. Unexpectedly, someone like Luo Hai could be killed. Who could have been responsible? Yang Kai remained silent, his expression calm. By the way, Aunt Lan, I was ambushed by Li Minghai on my way here this time. Gu Jianxian changed the subject abruptly. What? Luolan's beautiful face paled. Were you hurt? My injuries have already healed. It was all thanks to Brother Yang's help though, otherwise, I'm afraid I would have met disaster. Him? Luolan glanced at Yang Kai suspiciously. Although she was not sure what happened, since Gu Jianxian said that Yang Kai helped him escape danger, she naturally would not question him and said with a serious expression, Many thanks for offering your aid, little brother. This queen will certainly repay you for your efforts. Senior is too polite, Brother Gu and I are like old friends. It was just some trivial assistance, nothing worth mentioning. Yang Kai said modestly. Trivial? Luolan's expression became extremely weird. Being ambushed by an Origin King was no trivial matter, and she could almost imagine the great risks involved. If one thing had gone wrong, Gu Jianxian would likely not be standing in front of her right now, already buried in a remote corner of the star field. Where is that bastard Li Minghai now? Luolan turned her gaze to Gu Jianxian again as a cold murderous intent flashed across her beautiful eyes. Daring to do such a thing, there will be no place for him in the star field again. He's dead, Gu Jianxian quickly said. Luolan's jaw dropped and only after a short silence did she ask, How did he die? Gu Jianxian only glanced over at Yang Kai as a response. Luolan once again turned a suspicious gaze towards him. Yang Kai smiled harmlessly and said, I only gave him a sneak attack while he was concentrated on fighting Brother Gu. Luolan was again a little speechless but soon smiled and said, Little brother conceals himself quite well. He simply let success get to his head at the time. Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders. Seeing his casual expression, Luolan immediately knew that Yang Kai did not want to talk about this topic anymore, so she smartly advanced the conversation. Since even Li Minghai died, the situation can be considered closed. However, young master being able to escape this time was only thanks to a fortunate encounter with a noble person who provided assistance. You cannot act so recklessly in the future. I know, Gu Jianxian nodded solemnly. Oh yeah, Aunt Lan. I brought Brother Yang here this time mainly to consult with you about something. Oh, what? Brother Yang wants to build a palace on Azure Tree Star and needs a plot of land about 100,000 kilometers across. Does Aunt Lan have any appropriate locations? 100,000 kilometers. Luolan pondered for a moment before saying, There are many options, but I do not know what kind of location little brother would prefer. So why don't we discuss this matter while consulting Azure Tree Star's map tomorrow? Sound good. I shall trouble you, senior. Little brother need not be so polite. You saved young master's life, so 100,000-kilometer territory is nothing to Sword Union. Junior will take his leave first then. I look forward to meeting you again tomorrow, senior. Yang Kai knew that Gu Jianxian brought him over to meet Luolan and discuss his request for a piece of land. But now that introductions were finished, these two certainly had other confidential matters to discuss which were not appropriate for him to overhear. I'll see you out, Gu Jianxian gestured before leading Yang Kai out. Outside, a maidservant was assigned to lead Yang Kai to a guest room in the Azure Tree Palace to rest. After Yang Kai left, Luolan released her divine sense and opened the many barriers around the room to ensure no one could spy on this place before asking solemnly, "Young master, that Yang Kai, is he credible? And, according to my observations along the way, he has nothing to do with Sword Union, and him appearing where Li Minghai was lying in ambush for me was simply a coincidence. It was Li Minghai who launched a sneak attack on him first." He managed to survive a sneak attack from Li Minghai? Luolan's expression changed slightly. I don't know how he managed that. Gu Jianxian slowly shook his head. However, there is no doubt about his strength. What he said before was simply giving me face. Li Minghai dying was almost entirely thanks to him, and although part of the reason was him successfully launching a sneak attack. Aunt Lan, you've lived many years, but have you ever heard of an Origin Realm cultivator killing an Origin King before? No. Luolan shook her head solemnly before glaring at Gu Jianxian suddenly. Oh? You said your Aunt Lan has lived many years? Are you saying your Aunt Lan is old? Gu Jianxian scratched his head awkwardly and quickly wore a serious face as he tried to change the subject. Moreover, according to my observations, he actually used Space Force to sneak attack Li Minghai. Luolan's attention was on something important, so it took a while to process the additional information and asked, Space Force? He's able to use such a strange power in battle. It's more than that. Gu Jianxian recalled the scene at the time, and his expression constantly fluctuated as he said solemnly. His accomplishments in the Tao of Space seemed to have reached an unprecedented level. He was able to condense his Space Force into a coherent blade that cut and exiled part of Li Minghai's body to the void. Luolan could not help gasping when she heard this. Suffice it to say, I only want to make friends with him, and definitely not become enemies, so I will have to ask Aunt Lan to pay some more attention to him in the future. Rest assured, since he wants 100,000-kilometer territory here, there will always be opportunities for us to come into contact in the future. Luolan's beautiful eyes glowed with a strange light, as if she had become interested in Yang Kai, and continued, Good. Tell me in detail about the fight between you and Li Minghai. Aunt Lan is very curious. Either Sword Union always moved quickly, or Luolan was simply an efficient administrator. But Yang Kai had only stayed in the Azure Tree Palace for a single day before he was summoned by Luolan to discuss something. Yang Kai naturally understood this was about the territory he asked for and did not delay. Following the messenger who had come to summon him, Yang Kai made his way through the halls of the Azure Tree Palace for a short time before meeting a casually dressed Gu Jianxian in a certain corridor. The latter saw Yang Kai and beckoned to him with a smile. The left sword servant Ling Yu and right sword servant and Xing were standing together with him. Brother Gu. Yang Kai stepped forward and cupped his fists. How is Brother Yang's accommodation? Gu Jianxian asked enthusiastically. Extremely comfortable. Yang Kai replied. That's good. This Gu was worried he was not offering good enough hospitality. But since Brother Yang says he is comfortable, I can feel relieved. Senior Luo asked me to see her. It's as you think. Gu Jianxian grinned at Yang Kai before drawing him along with him. Follow me. Walking down this corridor, the group of four soon came to a light curtain which shrouded the way forward, making it impossible for anyone to see past it. This light curtain was like a waterfall that flickered with countless tiny flowing runes which swam about like small fish, giving it a mysterious and complex appearance. Gu Jianxian did not even spare the light curtain a glance and walked straight forward, only pausing for a moment to tell his left and right sword servants, You remain here, Execute anyone who dares try to intrude. Yes. Ling Yu and Enxing nodded firmly as they stood outside. Gu Jianxian then led Yang Kai directly past the light curtain. After experiencing a flash of light, Yang Kai found himself in a seemingly entirely different world. The whole place was silent and there was nothing of note except for a huge spherical object positioned in the middle of the space. This sphere was almost 24 meters in diameter and had irregular patterns covering it, some of which were yellow, some blue, some green, all of them occupying different areas on the sphere's surface. As Yang Kai got close, he noticed the sphere was spinning clockwise at a subtle speed. Luolan was standing nearby and greeted with a smile. "Little brother, Senior Luo." Yang Kai hurriedly returned the courtesy, but soon his attention was attracted to the sphere in front of him again. Luolan and Gu Jianxian did not seem like they intended to explain and simply observed the changes in Yang Kai's expression with interest. Soon, though, Yang Kai showed a look of understanding, turned to Luolan and Gu Jianxian, and said in surprise, "Is this a model of Azure Tree Star shrunk down countless times?" Little brother's intuition is sharp. Luolan smiled and nodded. This is indeed a tiny replica of Azure Tree Star. It took many cultivators from our Sword Union 100 years to survey all of Azure Tree Star's environments, measuring each region and categorizing them to complete this design. "Is this the map Senior mentioned yesterday?" Yang Kai asked thoughtfully. "Exactly." Gu Jianxian smiled and nodded. "The map that Aunt Lan was talking about yesterday refers to this thing, which was why we had to wait until today to let Brother Yang see it. There are many conveniences to this thing," Yang Kai muttered in surprise as he circled the sphere, soon understanding what the different colors represented. The yellow colors represented plains, while the blue was water and the green was forest. There were a small number of other colors also present which obviously corresponded to rarer areas like swamps and deserts. Sword Union's methods were impressive, but taking 100 years to complete a project like this was something only a superforce could afford. Looking closer, there were many large and small city-like signs on this sphere, which were obviously settlements where cultivators on Azure Tree Star gathered. With this, Luolan would find it much easier to manage Azure Tree Star. While Yang Kai observed, Luolan took the initiative to explain to him. As Yang Kai expected, the different colors really did correspond to different geographical environments, and depending on the color's depth, one could tell the richness of the ambient world energy in those areas. The lighter the color, the thinner the world energy, and vice versa. After briefly explaining to Yang Kai about this map, Luolan said, "The piece of land little brother wants. A piece of land 100,000 kilometers is neither big nor small, so this queen has selected a few locations for you to choose from. Of course, these are just areas this queen thinks are suitable. If little brother is not satisfied, he is free to choose any other spot on Azure Tree Star." Yang Kai was grateful and cupped his fists. "Junior will be accepting Senior's good intentions then. Please advise me. Little brother need not be so polite." Luolan smiled, stretched out her hand towards the large spherical map in front of her, spun it slightly, then halted it at a certain position. Luolan pointed to a certain place and said, "This is the first place this queen selected. This area is surrounded by mountains and rivers and is rich in materials as well as world energy. There is also a city nearby, which would fall under little brother's jurisdiction." "A city? Is that all right?" Yang Kai asked in surprise. He only wanted a piece of land that was not too barren and never expected he would actually be given an entire city to control. "It's no big deal, it's just a single city," Gu Jianxian grinned. "Indeed, on Azure Tree Star, even if there aren't 10,000 such cities, there are at least 8,000. Having little brother assume command of it would be this place's blessing," Luolan also added with a smile. Yang Kai did not know what Gu Jianxian had told her yesterday, but he could tell that Luolan's attitude towards him had changed subtly and was much more enthusiastic. "If little brother is not satisfied with this place, then how about here?" Luolan waved her hand and spun the map again, pointing to another spot and explaining, "This place is also quite good. This queen has been here before and can attest to its beautiful scenery and numerous great beauties." Seeing Yang Kai remain indifferent, Luolan immediately introduced him to the next place. After introducing 7 places in a row, Yang Kai still had nothing to say. Strictly speaking, the places Luolan selected for Yang Kai were indeed quite good, with rich world energy and numerous other advantageous conditions, each one an extremely generous proposal. But Yang Kai did not seem to be satisfied with any of them, causing Luolan to be a little puzzled, not knowing exactly what he was looking for. "Senior Luo, is there a suitable place on the sea?" Yang Kai saw that she was about to introduce the next place and quickly asked. "On the sea." Luolan raised her brow before smiling. "So little brother would like to live next to the sea. What do you think about this position?" Half an hour later, Yang Kai walked out of the mysterious space with a content look upon his face. After making a few comparisons, he finally chose a place called Twin Shark Island. It was difficult to classify Twin Shark Island as a single island or two, because if one looked from above, they would see that, although narrow and shallow, there was a connection between them. When viewed from the side, this island, or islands rather, looked like 2 sharks advancing side by side through the sea, a very vivid image. Hence the name, Twin Shark Island. The area was very in line with Yang Kai's requirements, no more, no less, exactly 100,000 kilometers in total. Additionally, there was a medium-sized seaside city 500,000 kilometers away from Twin Shark Island. This island was relatively remote on Azure Tree Star, and Luolan and Gu Jianxian could not understand why he chose such a place. After all, compared with the locations Luolan introduced to him before, Twin Shark Island's only advantage was its rich world energy aura. It seemed like Yang Kai was going around the sun to reach the moon and intentionally took a bad deal. But since Yang Kai had already decided, they did not try to persuade him otherwise. And so, Twin Shark Island became Yang Kai's territory from now on. As long as the faction Gu Jianxian led still controlled Sword Union, no one would be able to take Twin Shark Island away from him. This was also Gu Jianxian's commitment to Yang Kai. Yang Kai did not care too much though. Now that this site belonged to him, if someone dared try to take it from him in the future, they would first have to weigh the consequences. The next day, Yang Kai bid farewell to Luolan and Gu Jianxian and prepared to leave for Twin Shark Island. Outside the Azure Tree Palace, Gu Jianxian wore a slightly guilty expression as he said, "Brother Yang, unfortunately, this Gu cannot take you there in person. I have come to Azure Tree Star on important business, so my time is quite limited. Brother Gu doesn't need to pay it any mind. I can find my way to Twin Shark Island. Moreover, with this token given to me by Senior Luo, traveling and making arrangements will be convenient." Yang Kai smiled lightly. Gu Jianxian nodded. "Indeed." Then, making a mysterious smile, he added, "But Brother Yang, there are a few people here who would like to travel with you to Twin Shark Island. I hope you won't refuse. Someone wants to go with me?" "Who?" Yang Kai frowned. He hadn't heard anything about this beforehand. Gu Jianxian glanced to the side and after following his line of sight, Yang Kai saw 3 familiar faces. "Young Master Yang." Yushi walked over slowly and stood not far away. "Big Brother Yang." He Zhao and He Miao also called out cheerfully. Yang Kai looked at Gu Jianxian, who shrugged his shoulders and smiled. "I've expelled them from Sword Union. As the young Union Master, I have such rights." Yang Kai's expression changed. "Then, I asked them what they planned to do in the future, and they all said they wanted to follow you. I wonder if you'd be willing to take them in." Gu Jianxian added with a grin. "Many thanks for your kindness, Brother Gu," Yang Kai said seriously. With his shrewdness, how could Yang Kai not notice that Gu Jianxian was doing him a favor? After all, he was just a lone wanderer on Azure Tree Star. And although he was strong, there were always some matters that would be inconvenient for Yang Kai to handle in person. So having competent assistance was a necessity. With Yu Shi, He Zhao, and He Mao following him, the situation would be different. Some of the trivial matters that needed to be attended to could be left to them, and if it was ever inconvenient for Yang Kai to handle something personally, he could ask one of these 3 to manage it. This move also spared Yu Shi, He Zhao, and He Mao from enduring some awkward situations in Sword Union in the future. As Yang Kai said before, after the matter regarding Qin Qiang was dealt with in such a manner, Yu Shi, He Zhao, and He Mao would find it difficult to remain in Sword Union. No matter where they went, they would be accused of ingratitude. Now that they had been expelled from Sword Union, though, this would no longer be an issue. Gu Jianxian was a sharp individual and was trying to make the best impression he could on Yang Kai. So he had not hesitated to make this move. This was a kindness to him, so Yang Kai naturally had no reason to refuse. Turning to Yu Shi, He Zhao, and He Mao, Yang Kai asked solemnly, "Are you willing to follow me? As long as the young lord is willing to give us shelter." This Yu Shi is willing to do her best to serve him. Yu Shi quickly replied, "We are willing," the two sisters said in unison. "Good. Then from now on you will follow me." Yang Kai nodded. "Many thanks, young lord." Yu Shi elegant bowed, her face overflowing with joy. "Little brother?" Luolan, who was standing next to him, only spoke up now and said, "As for the space spirit crystals you need, for the time being, this queen is unable to gather much, but she will do her best to collect some and have them sent to you later. Would that be acceptable? I'll have to trouble Senior with this matter then." After Yang Kai chose Twin Shark Island as his site, he asked Gu Jianxian and Luolan to acquire a large amount of space spirit crystals for him. But these things were too scarce, so Luolan was unable to acquire a large quantity of them in such a short span of time. However, with her promise, Yang Kai was assured he would get some sooner or later. Afterwards, Yang Kai took Yu Shi, He Mao, and He Zhao, summoned his star shuttle and left the Azure Tree Palace. Gu Jianxian and the others watched Yang Kai leave before returning to the palace. Going to Twin Shark Island would take half a month despite using the space arrays on Azure Tree Star. Fortunately, Yang Kai had the token given to him by Luolan, and with it, all the space arrays of the major cities on Azure Tree Star were open to him. Following the route given to him by Luolan, Yang Kai traveled through various space arrays for half a month before arriving at Twin Shark Island. Although Twin Shark Island was remote, it still had a space array used to connect with the outside world, and when the figures of Yang Kai and his group appeared on the platform, the cultivator responsible for guarding this place immediately came forward and swept his eyes over them before performing his routine duties. "Travelers, what business do you have here on Twin Shark Island?" Yang Kai glanced at him and found that this person was only a third-order Saint King, while the other cultivators responsible for guarding this place also were not very strong. From the level of these cultivators, it could be inferred that the total strength of Twin Shark Island was not very high. Yang Kai did not answer directly and instead took out the token given to him and showed it to this guard. "What's this?" The cultivator's eyes narrowed slightly as a blank expression appeared on his face. "You don't know?" Yang Kai frowned. "Well, it doesn't matter if you don't know what it is. What is your island master's name and where is he? Take me to see him." The cultivator was shocked by Yang Kai's aggressive questioning and domineering attitude. Although he did not recognize what this token represented, he could faintly guess that Yang Kai had a powerful background. Immediately fixing his previous careless attitude, he replied suspiciously, "Island master's name is Zhu Liang. Dare I ask where these friends come from and how they know Sir Island Master?" Before Yang Kai could answer, Yu Shi coldly snorted, "Are you qualified to ask about my young lord's identity? Hurry up and lead the way." As she spoke, she intentionally released a bit of her shirt, causing the guard to change in complexion and realize that this man and three women were not people he could contend with. As such, he quickly bowed and guided them. This was another advantage of having confident subordinates. Yu Shi speaking up there would raise Yang Kai's identity and status and avoid some troublesome inquiries. Yang Kai shot Yu Shi an approving look, to which the latter responded with a smile. The strength of Twin Shark Island's island master Zhu Liang was not very high, only first-order origin returning realm. On such a remote island, it was quite rare for powerful cultivators to appear. After Yang Kai showed him the token and Luolan's handwritten note, Zhu Liang immediately acknowledged Yang Kai as this place's new master. Being able to assume command of Twin Shark Island so smoothly satisfied Yang Kai greatly. "And you will remain as island master in the future, and you will manage Twin Shark Island as before. I will not interfere in any of your affairs. If there are any problems you cannot handle, you can inform Lady Yu and she will convey it to me." "I understand." Seemingly realizing Yang Kai was easy to get along with, Zhu Liang gradually became less nervous. "Island Master Zhu, I am just a subordinate, Zhu Liang responded quickly. Sir should simply call this Zhu Liang by his name. Yang Kai gently nodded. Okay. Tell me about the situation on Twin Shark Island. Understood. Zhu Liang gathered his thoughts for a moment before explaining. Twin Shark Island is approximately 100,000 kilometers across and has fairly rich world energy. However, it doesn't produce any notable resources, making supplies a slight problem. Currently, there are roughly 200,000 residents on the island. The average cultivation level here is not high. Despite his lack of talent, your subordinate here is actually the strongest master on Twin Shark Island at the First-Order Origin Returning Realm. In addition to me, there are 3 other First-Order Origin Returning Realm cultivators on the island who serve as the Deputy Island Master and Elders. This lowly one has set up an Elder Council to manage the matters of Twin Shark Island with several elders. 500,000 kilometers east of Twin Shark Island, there is a city which is connected via space array. In the surrounding million-kilometer region, there are many other islands with similar situations to Twin Shark Island, and the relationship between the islands is fairly peaceful with only occasional contact. The biggest danger here comes from sea beasts. Every year, sea beasts will attack the island, resulting in much damage and loss of life. However, Twin Shark Island will certainly be much safer and more peaceful in the future with Sir here. While explaining, Zhu Liang also took the opportunity to flatter Yang Kai. Yang Kai paid this no mind though. Zhu Liang continued, the biggest output of Twin Shark Island and the nearby islands are the monster cores from sea beasts. Every year, many foreign cultivators come to Twin Shark Island to hunt these sea beasts. After half an hour of questioning, Yang Kai had a cursory understanding of the situation on Twin Shark Island. Overall, he was quite satisfied with this place and found it very suitable for his next plan. However, he needed to find an appropriate location before implementing that plan. Yang Kai decided to handle this personally. After dismissing Zhu Liang, Yang Kai assigned Yushi, He Zhao, and He Mao some tasks before flying off on his star shuttle alone to investigate the terrain of Twin Shark Island. This survey took Yang Kai 8 days to complete. In the end, Yang Kai chose an area in the southeast that was close to the sea and had excellent scenery. Most importantly, though, there was a large amount of open space here with few traces of cultivators ever visiting. Yang Kai found Zhu Liang again and asked him to recruit some cultivators from Twin Shark Island to build a palace there. Yang Kai naturally was not going to let others work in vain and offered St. Crystals as payment. Would Zhu Liang refuse this golden opportunity? Even if Yang Kai did not pay, he would still do his best to fulfill Yang Kai's request. There were 200,000 people on Twin Shark Island, so Zhu Liang casually gave an order to recruit 1,000 people and had them begin constructing a large palace at the place Yang Kai designated. The cultivators began immediately and worked at an incredibly fast pace. Within half a month, a magnificent palace was built that stretched across a more than 10-kilometer wide area. Zhu Liang even paid out of his own pocket to add some furniture and decorations to the palace. Once it was finished, Yang Kai moved in with Yushi, He Zhao, and He Mao. The palace was huge and seemed quite quiet and lonely with only 4 people inside of it. Yushi, He Zhao, and He Mao did not understand why Yang Kai had built such a huge palace here, but knowing it wasn't their place to ask, they simply obeyed his instructions and served him with dedication. That night, Yang Kai called them into his room. What orders does young lord have for us? Yushi asked curiously. It's nothing so serious. Have a seat first. Yang Kai motioned to them. After the 3 women were seated, Yang Kai continued, since you have chosen to follow me in the future, then I will not mistreat you. Having said so, I will inform you now that I have a sect called High Heaven Sect, of which I am the sect master. The sect's headquarters is on a very remote cultivation star. Would you like to join High Heaven Sect? The master and disciples glanced at each other before looking at Yang Kai and without hesitation nodding together. Of course we would. And then from now on you are members of High Heaven Sect. Yang Kai smiled and said, the sect headquarters is a long way away, so you won't have an opportunity to visit it in the short term, but rest assured, a day will come when I bring you to see it. High Heaven Sect. In the future, it will not be weak. Next, Yang Kai asked about the secret arts and artifacts Yushi, He Zhao, and He Miao used. The three of them explained to Yang Kai in detail, without concealing anything. Regarding secret arts, Yang Kai could not give them too many suggestions and could only allow them to explore slowly on their own. But when it came to artifacts, Yang Kai wasn't stingy. Yuxi originally had 2 origin-grade artifacts, but both were low rank, and although they could boost her combat power slightly, the effect was extremely limited. Yang Kai gave her his feather spirit arrow and the array plate which had the spectral cloud array sealed within it. With the improvement of his strength, these 2 artifacts had become useless to him. The feather spirit arrow required one to pour their Saint Chi into it to fill it to a certain extent before releasing it all in one extremely potent attack. Unfortunately, the Saint Chi capacity only allowed it to be activated twice, after which it needed to be charged again. With Yang Kai's current methods, he did not need to use artifacts when confronting third-order origin returning realm cultivators, and when dealing with origin kings, the feather spirit arrow could not provide him with much help. As such, he figured he could give it to Yuxi. The same was true for the spectral cloud array plate. It had little use to Yang Kai. However, if these 2 artifacts were used effectively by Yuxi, their peculiar abilities could greatly enhance her strength. With these 2 artifacts, Yuxi could still pose a threat to a third-order origin realm cultivator's life despite her first-order origin returning realm cultivation. Receiving these 2 artifacts, Yuxi was unable to contain her joy. Although she had Qin Wu Hui's support in Sword Union and followed Gu Jian Xian, she could have never dreamed of receiving such treasures. Yang Kai's wealth and generosity were simply shocking to her, in a pleasant way. Yang Kai did not give any artifacts to the He Zhao He Miao sisters, because the 2 had just received a pair of origin-grade mid-rank scimitars from Qin Wu Hui, and were already busy adapting to their use. When the 2 scimitars were combined into one, they formed a large, circular flying blade which was comparable to an origin-grade high rank and possessed amazing lethality. Having more artifacts wasn't necessarily better. Yang Kai handed 2 origin condensing pills to He Zhao and He Miao instead. In their current state, they only needed a bit more accumulation before they could attempt to break through to the origin realm. In addition, Yang Kai gave the master and disciples a large number of saint crystals and pills they could use to cultivate before sending them to enter retreat. Next, Yang Kai began arranging the cross-cultivation star space array in preparation to connect it to the transfer point he had built earlier. Yang Kai deliberately chose the innermost palace as the location for the space array. Refining all kinds of materials in a familiar way, engraving the spirit array, pouring his space force into it. A few days later, a new cross-cultivation star space array had been formed. The space spirit crystals in his hand had all been used up to finish this last space array. In fact, the number of space spirit crystals almost failed to meet the needs of this array. But fortunately, Yang Kai's calculations had been correct and he managed to complete it successfully. Releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai checked on Yuxi, He Zhao, and He Miao quickly, discovering that they were still in retreat. Nodding, Yang Kai then inserted enough Saint crystals into the array and activated it. In a flash, Yang Kai arrived on the star. Among the underground ruins discovered by Yang Kai before, there was a brightly lit area with countless cultivators bustling about. Yang Kai was surprised to discover that not only were there High Heaven Sect and Shadow Moon Hall disciples here, but also people from Clear Sky Sect and Colored Glass Sect, as well as many cultivators from sects that had good relations with High Heaven Sect. Evidently, Yi Shiyun and the others had finished making preliminary arrangements here and had begun inviting cultivators from other sects to come and mine this place. Sect Master Yang? As Yang Kai was observing, a surprised call came not far away. Yang Kai turned his head and discovered that the one who called out to him was none other than MOU from Clear Sky Sect. Senior MO, Yang Kai said hello with a smile. It really is Sect Master Yang. MOU was overjoyed and quickly walked over. I thought I had recognized the wrong person, but it turns out it really was you. Sect Master Yang. Where did he come from? Azure Tree Star. Yang Kai replied casually. Sect Master Yang's abilities are astounding, MOU said with admiration. If it weren't for you, my Shadowed Stars cultivators would have remained trapped forever. But now we can quickly and easily travel to other cultivation stars. I'm afraid no one other than our Shadowed Star cultivators can enjoy such convenience. Haha. Yang Kai laughed without denying it. It was true. Without the space array based on his comprehension of the Tao of space, ultra-long-distance teleportation was not possible. There may be so few cross-cultivation star space arrays in the star field, but those were definitely relics left over from ancient times and did not have the stability and safety of the ones Yang Kai personally arranged. No one dared to use those ancient space arrays unless absolutely necessary. Did Sect Master Yang come here to look for Great Elder Yi? Mou asked again. N. Where are Great Elder and the others? Come, I'll take you there. Mou quickly led the way. Because of the rise of High Heaven sect on Shadowed Star, countless sects and families had begun forming closer ties with it. It was High Heaven sect and Shadow Moon Hall who turned the tide of war when corpse spirit religion was running rampant. This time, because Clear Sky sect had a close relationship with High Heaven sect, they were able to obtain an opportunity to come to the Ore Star to mine rare ores. Mou and Yang Kai shared a close friendship, so they chatted happily upon meeting once again. Soon, Yang Kai saw Yi Shiyun and Chen Tong, who were assuming command of the overall situation on the Ore Star. After learning that he, Yang Kai, now owned a large territory on a cultivation star called Azure Tree Star and had connected it to the Space Array Network, everyone was extremely excited. This meant that the cultivators who had reached the limits of Shadowed Star now had a place where they could escape from the shackles of its world principles and spy on the mysteries of the Origin King realm. Especially for Yi Shiyun. She had been waiting for this day for a long, long time. When does Great Elder plan to leave? Yang Kai looked at Yi Shiyun and asked. What surprised Yang Kai was that Yi Shiyun shook her head and said, I won't be going there for now. Yang Kai went silent for a moment before quickly reacting. Because of Yang Yen? N. Yi Shiyun lightly smiled. If I were to really break through to the Origin King realm on Azure Tree Star, it would become difficult for me to stay on Shadowed Star for an extended period of time. Sect Master Chen's circumstances are the best example. I think, only after she awakens, will I attend to my own affairs. I see. Yang Kai heard this and did not try to persuade her otherwise. Yi Shiyun had done much for Yang Yen. Last time, she had the opportunity to leave Shadowed Star with Yang Kai, but because Yang Yen was still slumbering, Yi Shiyun chose to stay behind and stand guard. This time, she had made the same choice. All right then, Yang Kai smiled. In any case, since it's Great Elder, as long as the time is right, it shouldn't be too difficult to break through to the Origin King realm. Sect Master thinks too highly of me. Yi Shiyun laughed lightly. Throughout the ages, the Origin King realm has always been the highest ambition of us cultivators. Countless Origin returning realm masters have been stuck at this juncture for their entire lives. It certainly won't be that easy for me to reach that boundary. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully, knowing that Yi Shiyun was simply being modest. If the previous Yi Shiyun did not have complete confidence, the current Yi Shiyun, who had refined several domain stones and comprehended the mysteries of domain, had at least an 80% chance of smoothly breaking through to Origin King realm. In any case, I came back this time just to tell you the good news. Yang Kai turned his head and looked around. As for when you will go to Azure Tree Star, you can arrange that amongst yourselves. Don't worry about this. When the time comes, Great Elder Yi, Brother Mo, and I will definitely organize a group of people to travel to Azure Tree Star. Chen Tong laughed heartily. How could we not grab hold of such a wondrous opportunity? Even if we break through to the Origin King realm, it does not matter if we can't remain on Shadowed Star for a long time. With the space array available, we can come and go freely, so Shadowed Star shouldn't have any accidents. All right, when you go there, someone will be waiting to welcome you. Yang Kai nodded. By the way, you've been mining here for some time now. Have you found a space spirit crystal mineral lode? No. Chen Tong shook his head and said, This old master, Great Elder Yi, and Brother Mo have gone out several times to search for mineral lodes. But although this Ore Star is extremely rich, we've yet to discover a space spirit crystal lode. Yang Kai was not surprised about this and had just been asking casually about space spirit crystals, so he wasn't disappointed with the negative response. Yang Kai did not remain on the Ore Star for very long, and after explaining a few things while also getting some updates on the situation, he used the space array to return to his palace on Azure Tree Star. This trip only took him half a day, so when he returned, Yushi, Hizeo, and Himao were still in secluded retreat. The rest of the day was spent without any surprises. Zhu Liang brought the few elders of Twin Shark Island to visit Yang Kai mainly to introduce themselves. But this was not surprising. Twin Shark Island was now Yang Kai's territory, and they would have to rely on him in the future. So how could they be negligent in such courtesies? Yang Kai did not need to pay these few first-order origin returning realm cultivators much mind, simply entertaining them briefly before sending them away. What Yang Kai was waiting for was word from Sword Union. He believed that, as a super force, they would surely be able to collect some space spirit crystals for him. As long as he had enough space spirit crystals, Yang Kai could set off again to arrange more cross-cultivation star space arrays, eventually covering the entire star field, allowing Shadowed Star's cultivator to travel wherever they wanted without worrying about the vast distances of the star field. Tong Xian Realm was especially important to Yang Kai. He was eager to connect Shadowed Star to this homeland. Unfortunately, there had been no news from Sword Union so far. It was not until 2 months later that Yang Kai, who was cultivating, received a message from Yushi. Someone from Sword Union is here. Yang Kai was very excited and got up quickly, going out to meet with this messenger as he secretly looked forward to how many space spirit crystals he would be able to get this time. He thought that Luolan would dispatch a subordinate of hers to complete this exchange. But Yang Kai was shocked to discover that Luolan had come herself. Why has Senior Luo come here in person? After inviting Luolan into the palace and offering her a seat in the greeting hall, Yang Kai could not help asking. Little brother is young master's friend. This queen should naturally come here personally. Luolan pursed her lips and smiled. Why am I not welcome? Nonsense. Senior being able to visit my humble home is a great honor. Yang Kai laughed heartily. Of course, he did not believe that someone like Luolan would be so idle that she had time to come sightseeing here, which meant that the reason she gave him was not the real one. For a simple trade on behalf of Sword Union, Luolan could send any of her subordinates to complete it. Why would she need to come out in person? Yang Kai faintly sensed that Luolan had some other purpose in coming here, but since the other party did not say anything yet, he didn't ask. It's quite quiet here. Luolan turned her eyes around as she spoke. This palace stretched over 10 kilometers in radius, but only Yang Kai, Yushi, Hizeo, and Himao lived here. With the 3 women in retreat, though, it was almost like Yang Kai was the only one who was present. In normal times, the palace was indeed all but silent. Why not have Zhu Liang find some servants to take care of this palace? Luolan asked, seemingly concerned. Yang Kai chuckled and said, That's not necessary. I can handle things here myself. What would there even be for servants to do? Fair enough. Peace and quiet are best. Luolan smiled before suddenly saying, And these are the space spirit crystals that little brother requested. Although this queen tried her best to collect them, as you know, space spirit crystals are very rare, so I don't know if this quantity can meet your requirements. Saying so, Luolan took out a space ring, flicked her wrist, and sent it over to Yang Kai. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and caught it before sweeping its content with his divine sense, only to frown lightly at what he saw. Luolan was observing carefully and couldn't help asking in surprise, What's wrong? There are many space spirit crystals in this space ring. Is it not enough for little brother? Yang Kai frowned and nodded. It's not much. Luolan wore a solemn look and asked, What do you need so many space spirit crystals for? These things don't really have another purpose other than refining space rings, right? Yang Kai chuckled but did not answer. Luolan seemed to realize she had asked something she shouldn't have and apologized. This queen was simply curious. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. All right, if you wait for a while, I can contact the Homestar and have them collect some more for you. How long would that take? Yang Kai asked. The Homestar is not close to here, so even if they manage to collect some space spirit crystals, it will take some time to deliver it. It would be at least a year, but even so, I don't know how many space spirit crystals they would be able to collect. Forget it then. Yang Kai shook his head slowly. The space spirit crystals that Luolan brought this time were not few, but for Yang Kai's goal, they also weren't many. These space spirit crystals would only be enough to arrange a single cross-cultivation star space array, which obviously could not meet Yang Kai's needs. If he wanted to connect Tongxian realm to Shadowed Star, he would need to build at least 2 or 3 space arrays to serve as transfer points in between. The formation of space spirit crystals is quite difficult, and generally speaking, they only appear as byproducts in different mineral lodes, making their number quite scarce. However, this queen has heard of a place where numerous void cracks form large numbers of space spirit crystals. Luolan suddenly began speaking about a seemingly unrelated but associated topic, immediately acting mysterious and asking, "Is little brother interested in perhaps looking for space spirit crystals on his own?" Yang Kai narrowed his eyes before chuckling. "This is the real purpose of Senior coming here in person, right?" Luolan smiled and did not try to deny it. "Since you've seen through me, then I won't bother hiding. Senior knows of a place where there are void cracks which form space spirit crystals?" Yang Kai asked. Luolan nodded. "I wonder if little brother is interested in going there? And if I say I'm not?" Yang Kai replied with a smile. Luolan didn't seem surprised and simply laughed lightly. "Well, in addition to space spirit crystals that may exist there, that place is also home to shocking void beasts." "Shocking void beasts?" Yang Kai muttered under his breath as his eyes fixed on Luolan deeply and said, "It looks like Senior knows I am proficient in the Tao of Space. Was it Gu Jian Xian who told you? If this wasn't the case, do you think this queen would come here in person?" Luolan smiled. "Since you used Space Force in front of the young master, you should have already known this would happen. However, you may rest assured, only I and young master know of this. No one else will. It doesn't matter if others know or not." Yang Kai shrugged. "If I was afraid that people would know, I wouldn't have used Space Force to kill Li Minghai." Luolan was startled, then smiled bitterly. She could not help but feel like all the initiative she had in this situation was shattered by Yang Kai's few words, making her feel somewhat weak. After pondering for a while, she said in a serious tone, "Little brother, since you cultivate the Tao of Space and have significant achievements in this domain, you must be aware of the benefits a shocking void beast's monster core would have for you. This kind of exotic beast which can freely shuttle the void is said to have gone extinct long ago. But there is one place where they still survive. If you can obtain one of their monster cores, I think your comprehension of the Tao of Space will increase a level. On top of that, there is a huge possibility that there are many space spirit crystals in the place, more than enough for your needs. If I am not mistaken, you need space spirit crystals to cultivate Space Force too." "Yes." Yang Kai neither confirmed nor denied her guess, simply asking, "And where would that be?" Seeing him finally showing some interest, Luolan's expression brightened but did not directly answer, instead asking, "If I told you that there is a higher realm above the Origin King realm, would you think I am lying to you?" "No." Yang Kai shook his head. Luolan was stunned by his immediate response. "Someone once told me that the martial Tao has no peak. The Origin King realm can naturally not be the ultimate goal of us cultivators." Yang Kai explained casually. "So that's how it is." Luolan relaxed and smiled. She had thought Yang Kai knew some terrifying information, but it turned out he just had his own dreams and aspirations. In truth, Yang Kai really had this startling piece of information, but he had no intention of letting that be known. Luolan added, "No one knows whether the Origin King realm is the highest realm a cultivator can reach, but with a legendary character like the Starry Sky Great Emperor having once appeared, many Origin Kings feel that there must be a realm above the Origin King realm. Additionally, above the star field we live in, there must also be a higher realm." "Why do you say that?" Yang Kai frowned. "Because the place I spoke of to you is actually a fragment that was severed from that higher realm," Luolan said solemnly. "We call it the Severed World, and the world energy and world principles of that place are somewhat different from those of any cultivation star in the star field. Not only that, but that place contains countless opportunities. Without even mentioning the various rare and precious cultivation resources there, some people even manage to bring back herbs and ores which surpass the Origin King grade from it. These precious resources allowed some to easily enhance their cultivation. We Origin Kings have an exceedingly difficult time enhancing our cultivation, But if one is lucky enough to find some rare resource from that place, it may be enough to break through one's shackles and reach a higher level. The severed world? Yang Kai frowned. And the world principles there are more suitable for cultivators to cultivate in. And that's the place you want me to go to? Yes. Luolan nodded. If what you say is true, though, wouldn't those third-order origin kings who have secluded themselves from the world and go there to attempt to break through to a higher realm? No, Luolan smiled. After all, that place is only a fragmented world, and although it comes from a higher realm, it still exists within the star field, so it cannot satisfy the needs of those third-order origin kings to make a breakthrough. There have been a few third-order origin kings who entered that place before, but the result was that none of them could enhance their cultivation further. Also, how many third-order origin kings do you think there are in the star field? Most of them are old monsters that no longer appear unless something sensational occurs. But there will be second-order origin kings there, right? Possibly, Luolan nodded. Since it is a place where origin kings go to seek opportunities, why ask me to accompany you there? I'm only a third-order origin realm cultivator, Yang Kai asked curiously. You may be a third-order origin returning realm cultivator, but you're anything but normal, right? Luolan asked. This queen has never heard of any third-order origin returning realm that can kill an origin king, and don't say it was because you made a sneak attack. If an origin king could be casually killed just because they were sneak attacked, they would not be an origin king. I came to you first because you are not weak, so you shouldn't be a burden for me, but more importantly, I need your help specifically for something in that place. You need my help specifically? Yang Kai raised his brow thoughtfully but quickly understood. Because I cultivate the Tao of space? Exactly. Luolan nodded, her expression saying that it much easier dealing with a smart person. The severed world is filled with void cracks, some visible, some not, but all of them extremely dangerous, even to origin kings. Every time that place opens, several origin kings get lost to those void cracks. I do not want to suffer such a fate. Since you are proficient in the Tao of space, though, it should be easy for you to sense those void cracks. I understand, Yang Kai nodded. But, will it be alright for you to bring in an origin returning realm cultivator like me? Why not? Luolan chuckled. Any origin king that is qualified to enter can bring another person with them. So you won't be the only origin realm cultivator there. There will be others? Yang Kai was surprised. Yes, but not many. However, since that place is extremely well suited for origin kings to cultivate in, it is naturally an excellent place for origin realm cultivators to cultivate as well. Some people even enter that place in order to break through to the origin king realm. Speaking until here, Luolan said, That's all the information I know about this. I came here today to ask little brother for his help. Of course, this is also a good opportunity for you. Opportunities are accompanied by risks. You're already a third-order origin returning realm cultivator at such a young age, so you must have already experienced more than your fair share of risks. No? Luolan giggled lightly. Cultivation itself is a process of competing against others, the heavens, and oneself. Only by going all out will one succeed. Yang Kai took a deep breath, pondered for a while and said, I need to think about this. Naturally. In any case, there's still time. Please give me an answer after careful consideration. Luolan being able to say so already showed her sincerity. Yang Kai solemnly replied, Good. Then I'll have to ask Senior to remain here a few days. I will have an answer for you 3 days later. Then this queen will wait for good news. If you can accompany this queen, I believe the journey will be much safer. 3 days later, Yang Kai and Luolan left Twin Shark Island together and set off for the Azure Tree Palace. In all honesty, space spirit crystals that Luolan mentioned being formed in the void cracks did not have much attraction to Yang Kai. Although these things were scarce, Yang Kai only needed to travel to a few more cultivation stars and he would be able to collect a sufficient amount. With the financial and material resources he currently possessed, he did not have any problem purchasing a large amount of space spirit crystals. It would only take him some time. What really attracted Yang Kai's attention was the shocking void beast which could freely shuttle the void. This was an exotic ancient beast that lived in the void, and its monster core was of great help to those who cultivated the Tao of Space. Currently, Xianxia had reached a bottleneck in his cultivation of the Tao of Space, and opening the sealed world bead had become extremely slow. However, if he could obtain the shocking Void Beast's monster core and use it as the primary material in a spirit pill, it would allow him to make a qualitative leap in his comprehension of the Tao of Space. Since there would not be any third-order origin kings in the severed world, Xianxia had nothing to worry about. He was confident that he could escape from a second-order origin king with his current abilities. As such, after 3 days of consideration, he agreed to Luolan's request and decided to go with her to the severed world. Before leaving, Xianxia ordered Yushi, Hizeo, and Himao to remain in the palace and told them that if a cultivator holding a token with the character for High on it appeared suddenly, there was no need to panic because they were from High Heaven sect. Just receive them courteously. Although the master and disciple trio were confused, not understanding how someone would suddenly just appear in the palace, they did not ask anything and just accepted their task. A few days later, Xianxia and Luolan came to the Azure Tree Palace. After arranging a room for Xianxia to rest in, Luolan started making preparations. Since she was leaving Azure Tree Star on this trip, so naturally had many affairs to settle. She also had much to prepare to enter the severed world. As for Xianxia though, he just sat in meditation in his room. Gu Xianxia was no longer here. According to Luolan, the young Union Master of Sword Union had left more than a month ago, but he had repeatedly told Luolan to treat Xianxia carefully. Time flew by and soon a month had passed. Xianxia, who was meditating, received a divine sense message from Luolan suddenly and immediately ended his retreat, opened the door, and walked out. Outside the door, Luolan was waiting for him, and after seeing him come out, she gently nodded and led the way. Outside the Azure Tree Palace, an origin-grade mid-rank starship had been prepared. The two entered the starship, and not long after, it took off and headed towards the star field. The severed world is located in a certain remote region of the star field, and its entrance is wrapped in countless void cracks. Normally, it is impossible to enter, but once in a while, the surrounding void cracks stabilize, and the entrance can be opened. At that time, it is necessary for multiple origin kings to jointly execute a special secret technique. Once we get there, we will have to wait for some time before we can enter, Luolan explained to Xianxia as she led him through the starship. Do you know the other origin kings who will be entering? Xianxia asked. I know some of them, and I will recognize the names of others even if I've never met them before. However, I won't know all of them as the entry time for the severed world isn't fixed. So only those who receive the news and are hoping to search for opportunities or to break through will appear. Luolan stopped in front of a certain room and said, You can live here for the time being. If you need anything, just ask. We'll arrive at our destination in about a month. Xianxia nodded and entered the room. Upon entering, Xianxia walked over to the bed, sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began cultivating. Nothing happened over the next month, which Xianxia spent entirely in meditation. Luolan did not come to visit him during this time, nor did any of the Sword Union cultivators disturb him. It was not until 1 month later that Xianxia felt the starship stop. Luolan's voice sounded outside his room soon after. Xianxia. Xianxia's figure flickered, and he opened the door, nodding to Luolan lightly before the two of them walked out. The starship's main hatch opened, and the two rushed out like lightning. After the two left, the starship turned around and sailed back along the path it took. Standing in the void, Luolan looked left and right to get her bearings before speaking. Follow me. Saying so, she summoned her star shuttle and began leading the way. 2 streams of light, one in front and one behind, soared through the vast, empty star field. Xianxia remained silent as he followed behind Luolan, avoiding the occasional asteroid and starry sky storm they encountered. He did not know how much time passed, but at a certain point, Xianxia suddenly saw a circular object floating in the void up ahead that exuded a dazzling brilliance. Even from far away, Xianxia could feel the fluctuation of space force coming from this object. Is that? Xianxia turned his head and looked at Luolan. That's the entrance. Luolan relaxed after seeing the scene ahead. It seems that we've arrived early. The entrance has not stabilized yet and cannot be opened temporarily. The space force fluctuations coming from it are indeed chaotic. Xianxia muttered to himself. You can feel them? Luolan looked at him in surprise. You know, I am proficient in the Tao of space. Why wouldn't I be able to feel them? Xianxia chuckled lightly. Luolan's eyes lit up. It really was a wise choice to bring you here. At this distance, I can only feel that there is danger up ahead. Even if a third-order origin king wanted to break in, I am afraid they would meet a terrible end. I don't know what will happen next, but Xianxia, you have to remember, don't expose your ability in front of other people here. Otherwise, I know. Xianxia interrupted her. How could he not understand the truth that an ordinary man is innocent, but treasures make one guilty? If his ability to read space force fluctuations was really exposed, he would instantly become the target of every origin king present. Luolan gently nodded and continued flying together with Xianxia. The closer the pair got to the entrance, the clearer Xianxia could sense the space force fluctuations, his eyes gradually revealing a trace of excitement. Originally, he had followed Luolan on this trip primarily to hunt a shocking void beast and obtain its monster core, but what he had not anticipated was that he would have some gains even just by reaching his place. Others could only sense that there was danger surrounding the entrance, but Xianxia could feel the essence of the space force coming from it. The chaotic fluctuations here helped him comprehend the mysteries of the Tao of space, and it was not long before he reached a state of enlightenment. A few hours later, the two had already arrived not far from the entrance. Observing from a close distance, this entrance was about 5 kilometers in length and exuded a white brilliance. But in front of the entrance, a pitch-black void crack would flit about like a fish from time to time. These swimming void cracks blocked anyone from attempting to pass through the entrance and were no doubt the most dangerous barrier here. Near the entrance, there were already several figures waiting. There were not many people present, only 7 or 8, most of them alone, with only a few clearly in pairs. Xianxia didn't dare to investigate too presumptuously because he knew that these people were basically all origin kings. These people stood far apart, indicating that they were from different great forces and had no plans to join forces. Some had closed their eyes and were resting while others were looking about, their outfits all quite different. When Luolan and Xianxia arrived, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. Elder Luo dares to come to this place? Not far to the left, a hoarse voice suddenly called out with a hint of frivolousness. Luolan heard this voice, furrowed her delicate brow, and glanced over towards its source, her expression fluctuating a few times before she quickly said, So it is Elder Chui. Since Elder Chui can come, why can't this queen come? The man surnamed Chui chuckled. This Chui certainly didn't mean to imply that, but the severed world is extremely dangerous. Is Elder Luo not afraid she might accidentally perish inside? Elder Chui need not concern himself with this queen's safety. He should instead worry about his own. Luolan snapped back. As soon as these two met, they began bickering like this, so obviously, they were quite familiar with one another and had grievances between them. Xianxia stood beside Luolan, observing this man's words and expressions but remaining silent, simply taking note of him in his heart. The man surnamed Chui nearly choked on Luolan's blunt remarks, but he did not show any annoyance. Instead, just grinned lightly. Elder Luo, although there are some misunderstandings between you and me, in the end, we're both elders of Sword Union. Since we've both come here, why not work together? That way, it will be much safer for everyone. This Luolan will take Elder Chui's kindness to heart. But this queen is not alone this time. Elder Chui should invite someone else. Luolan replied lukewarmly, rejecting the other party's proposal. Xianxia's expression changed, only now realizing that this man surnamed Chui was also an elder of Sword Union. It seemed that he was an opponent from Sword Union's Vice-Union Master's faction. Otherwise, Luolan would not have treated him so coldly. The man surnamed Chui glanced at Xianxia thoughtfully as his eyes flashed like a poisonous snake, and he said, Elder Luo brought this little boy with her? Why has this old master never seen him before? Elder Luo bringing a junior here. Do you want him to gain something from the severed world? Or perhaps expect him to break through to the origin king realm? Why should I tell you about my relationship with him? Elder Chui, aren't you sticking your nose where it doesn't belong? Luolan looked at the other party with disgust. The man surnamed Chui snickered lowly. If you don't want to say, don't. Why get so upset? After saying so, he turned to Yang Kai and said in a pointed tone, Boy, the severed world is very dangerous. Be careful not to die inside. Yang Kai squinted at him, his expression cold, not intending to make a response. This attitude made the man surnamed Chui quite annoyed. Luolan slapping his face in public was one thing. After all, Luolan and he were both Sword Union elders and their strength was even, but Yang Kai was just a trivial third-order origin returning realm cultivator, yet he dared act so arrogantly. This man surnamed Chui wanted to find an excuse to attack. However, before he could even say anything to Yang Kai, a cold snort rang out from nearby. What a farce! If your Sword Union has internal disputes, just solve them quickly by yourselves. Why put them on display here? Or do you want this old master to referee a fight between you two? The winner stays and the loser can scram. The man who spoke wore deep purple robes and had a sturdy face. His expression calm and composed as an oppressive aura lingered about his body. The man surnamed Chui and Luolan heard this voice and both their faces changed slightly. Luolan let out a peal of light laughter as she said, We've shown Senior and I something embarrassing. This mistress did not have such intentions. The man surnamed Chui also smiled politely and said, Senior and I need not pay it any mind. I was simply making a joke with Elder Luo. Humph! Senior and I coldly snorted, not putting Luolan or the man surnamed Chui in his eyes at all as he snapped. Since that's the case, then be quiet and don't disturb this old master. Luolan and man surnamed Chui both looked embarrassed but didn't say anything more. The man surnamed Chui simply shooting Yang Kai a cold glare, as if wanting to remember his appearance. Just after arriving here, he had already become the target of an Origin King realm for no apparent reason, a fact that caused Yang Kai's mood to sink. That guy's name is Chui Hong, an elder of my Sword Union and a life and death friend of Li Minghai. Both are members of the Vice Union Masters faction. When you enter the Severed World, you must be careful not to leave my side. He wouldn't dare attack me head-on, but he'll have no qualms about attacking you. Luolan's voice quietly reached Yang Kai's ears and explained to him. Yang Kai nodded imperceptibly before asking quietly, Who is that Senior and I? Both of you seemed quite wary of him. His name is Enai Guang and he belongs to Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Luolan replied, He's a second-order Origin King, so why wouldn't Chui Hong and I fear him? So that's how it is. Yang Kai understood and glanced over towards Enai Guang. When Yang Kai did so though, his eyes happened to meet with those of another person standing next to Enai Guang. Yang Kai was instantly startled. The owner of this other pair of eyes was smiling towards him meaningfully, staring at Yang Kai quite enthusiastically. Yang Kai's expression filled with bitterness and he almost couldn't stop himself from cursing, quickly turning his eyes away, lowering his head, half covering his face with his hands while silently chanting to himself. You can't see me, you can't see me, you can't see me. This was obviously a pitiful attempt at self-deception. After he and Luolan arrived here, Yang Kai hadn't paid too much attention to the cultivators who had arrived earlier, and only now did he realize that an old acquaintance of his was next to Enai Guang. With a face like jade and an all-but-perfect body, white skin that would make any woman jealous and an enchanting smile that could make any female, and even many males, entranced with just a single glance. Hold a folding fan in a suave manner, no matter what kind of young talent they were, they would definitely feel inferior in front of him, as if he was born to stand above them all. Simply synonymous with perfection. This young man, if it wasn't third young master Xueyu, who would it be? The last time Yang Kai met Xueyu was in the Emperor Garden, where they had ended up fighting. Fortunately, with the closure of the Emperor Garden, Yang Kai managed to escape from her entanglement, but he never expected to meet her again outside this severed world. However, it actually wasn't too surprising once Yang Kai thought about it. The severed world was filled with both opportunity and risk, and although its existence was only known to a few masters, Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce was one of the major forces in the star field, so they were obviously aware of it. This time, a master like Enai Guang had been dispatched, so it was understandable that Shui Yu had also come for life experience. Instantaneously, all kinds of thoughts flashed through Yang Kai's mind, allowing him to understand the current situation. Soon, he let out a sigh, raised his head, and stared directly into Shui Yu's eyes, grinning at her widely, exhibiting a pose of a dead pig not fearing boiling water. Shui Yu was stunned, as if never expecting Yang Kai would act so boldly. Even with Enai Guang by her side, this bastard still dared to stare back at her, causing her to be a little annoyed and send Yang Kai a vicious look, showing a variety of enchanting styles. Showing such a posture when she had the outward appearance of a handsome man, however, seemed a bit improper, and those who didn't know the truth and saw this would definitely think that there was something special about Shui Yu's preferences. But Yang Kai knew her details quite intimately, so seeing her make such a defeated expression only caused him to smile even more happily. Yang Kai's relationship with Shui Yu was complicated, to say the least. While they could be loosely classified as enemies, it hadn't reached the point where they wanted each other dead. Rather, it was Yang Kai who had learned Shui Yu's greatest secret, and Shui Yu who wanted to eliminate him to remove that threat. However, Shui Yu never truly tried to silence the witness to the crime, and even if she dispatched some people to chase Yang Kai on Rainfall Star, she hadn't acted ruthlessly, only sending 2 cultivators she knew Yang Kai would be able to kill. In another sense, they could be considered friends, but there was a barrier between their hearts that made it all but impossible for them to truly weather wind and rain together. Shui Yu essentially felt that Yang Kai had taken advantage of her many times and was so angry she wanted to teach him a harsh lesson so he would be obedient to her. But Yang Kai had also risked his life to save hers, earning her gratitude. The two opposing feelings in her heart left Shui Yu in quite an awkward and frustrating dilemma. Yang Kai was equally confused about how to deal with his relationship with Shui Yu. If she was just an ordinary woman, that would be one thing, but she was actually the successor that Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce's president AIO had set his hopes on. Perhaps Shui Yu would become president of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce in the future, but if her identity as a woman was exposed, that would make it almost impossible for her to assume that position. This was a secret she had to hide at all costs. This obvious eye contact was naturally not missed by the Origin Kings nearby, with Luo Lan turning an amazed look to Yang Kai and asking quietly, "Do you know that young man? Do you know who he is?" "I know, of course I know." Yang Kai nodded. Luo Lan said in astonishment, "You actually have such a wide range of contacts?" Luo Lan had also only heard of the famous third young master Shui Yu, but never seen him. Being able to recognize Shui Yu at a glance was entirely because of Enai Guang's seemingly humble attitude towards Shui Yu. In Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, Enai Guang was a senior who had almost unlimited authority. So what other third-order origin returning realm besides Shui Yu could he possibly act respectfully towards? Ordinary origin returning realm masters didn't even have the qualifications to meet Enai Guang in person, much less stand beside him as an equal. Moreover, Shui Yu's appearance was exactly as the rumors had stated, stunning enough to fascinate any sentient being, man, woman, old, or young. Even a master like Luo Lan couldn't help stealing a few more glances at him after seeing Shui Yu. "Are you friends?" Luo Lan asked again. Ahaha. Yang Kai didn't know how to answer this question, so he hesitated for a moment before saying, "I have some entanglements with him." Entanglements? Luo Lan's heart sank, subconsciously thinking that there might be some hatred between Yang Kai and Shui Yu. If that was the case, his situation was certainly not good. While the two were whispering here, Enai Guang and Shui Yu seemed to be talking about something as well, and after communicating for a moment, Enai Guang turned an interested look towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai had a bitter taste in his mouth, not knowing what Shui Yu had said to Enai Guang. If she had spoken some malicious remarks about him behind his back, there was a chance Enai Guang might act against him. Thinking so, Yang Kai secretly told Luo Lan to immediately flee as soon as she saw something was wrong and give up on the severed world. How could Luo Lan dare disagree? At this moment she deeply regretted dragging Yang Kai here. If she had come alone, although the risk she faced later would definitely have greatly increased, at least she wouldn't have to worry about just entering. She didn't fear Cui Hong, but Enai Guang was different. as his second-order origin king cultivation was enough for Luolan to withdraw voluntarily. The conversation between Guang and Xueyu also seemed to come to an end, and the second-order origin king realm master was now staring at Yang Kai with piercing eyes, as if he wanted to see through him and into his thoughts. Yang Kai felt immense pressure but continued to stare at Xueyu without speaking. Xueyu just smiled innocently, opened her folding fan and waved it gently, completely acting the part of an elegant young lord. During her many confrontations with Yang Kai, it was rare that she was able to see his defeated expression. So, even if she was borrowing Guang's might in order to suppress him, Xueyu couldn't help feeling happy. "Young man, do you want to travel together with this old master?" Guang suddenly asked. As soon as this statement came out, the scattered origin kings nearby all wore startled looks and stared towards Yang Kai with strange and scrutinizing expressions. None of them knew why Guang would suddenly invite a mere third-order origin returning realm cultivator to join him, and one that had come here with Luolan from Sword Union at that. This blatant act of poaching caused everyone to feel some confusion. If Yang Kai was comparable to Guang in strength, it would be understandable for him to want to form an alliance to explore the severed world together. But Yang Kai was nothing more than a third-order origin returning realm boy, so what could Guang possibly see in him that is worthy of his attention? Yang Kai didn't expect things to develop like this, thinking that the most likely scenario was Xueyu bad-mouthing him to Guang so that the latter would teach him a lesson. When Guang sent out this invitation, though, Yang Kai was not just taken aback. He was also quite suspicious, glancing over at Xueyu and wondering what she was up to. Xueyu smiled triumphantly, still waving her fan as if she was simply enjoying the scenery, the expression on her face completely unreadable. "Hateful woman!" Yang Kai cursed secretly in his heart. After pondering for a moment, Yang Kai turned to Guang, cupped his fists and said, "Junior is moved by Senior's kindness, but Junior's strength is low, so he is afraid if he were to travel together with Senior, he would only become a burden." "Ha-ha!" Guang smiled lightly. "Seems you have some self-awareness, but since this old master has invited you, naturally he has the confidence to protect you? Or are you questioning this old master's strength and methods?" Yang Kai frowned while Luolan's face also changed slightly, silently urging Yang Kai to pay more attention to his words. Yang Kai smiled hesitantly and continued to argue. "Senior has great strength and superb cultivation. Junior doesn't dare doubt that, but Junior came here today with Senior Luo, so a true man should act decisively and not quibble about such minor issues." Guang snorted coldly, seemingly dissatisfied with Yang Kai continuing to make excuses, taking a deep look at him and declaring, "In that case, you and Elder Luo can join hands with this old master. What do you think?" Instead of Yang Kai, Guang's last words were directed at Luolan. Luolan was startled as hesitation and struggle flashed across her face, but she quickly composed herself, smiled, and replied, "Since Senior and I has offered so kindly, it would be impolite for this mistress to refuse." Saying so, she cast a meaningful glance towards Yang Kai before flying over towards Guang first. With Luolan agreeing already, Yang Kai was out of reasons to object, so he could only sigh and chase after her. Soon after, the pair arrived in front of Guang and Xueyu, forming a small group. Among everyone present, originally, only Guang had brought an origin returning realm junior, while the other origin kings came alone. Now that Luolan and Yang Kai had joined them, there were now 4 people in Guang's group. If one only counted numbers, this group overwhelmed all others present, but whether the 2 origin realm juniors would be more help or hindrance was unclear. After inviting Luolan and Yang Kai, Guang seemed to lose interest in speaking and simply stood in the void, closing his eyes and resting. After Luolan came over, she could not help acting somewhat cautious. After all, her cultivation was lower than Guang's and she belonged to a different great force, so she was somewhat uncomfortable. Yang Kai was even less pleased and simply remained sullenly silent. Xueyu closed her folding fan and flashed a smile. "Brother Yang, who would have expected that we would meet once more? I didn't expect to see you here. It must be fate. What do you want?" Yang Kai glared at her and spat with no trace of politeness. Let me say this first. I have no interest in crossing dragons and swords with other men. So don't get close to me. Luo Lan's head whipped back and her beautiful eyes flashed a strange light as she glanced back and forth between Yang Kai and Shuiyu, unable to hide her shock. Even Ni Guang, who had just closed his eyes and calmed his mind, opened them wide once again, his expression turning into an extremely strange one. You? Shuiyu didn't think that Yang Kai would speak such shameless words as soon as he came over, causing her face to go completely red as she trembled in anger. What nonsense crossing dragons and swords? Humph! Yang Kai snorted through his nostrils, putting on a haughty appearance. What it means, you know in your heart. The ambiguity of his words made Shuiyu even more helpless. Coupled with Luo Lan and Ni Guang's awkward gazes, Shuiyu could not control her emotions for a moment and blushed all the way to her neck. Ha! Ha ha! Luo Lan did not know what to say, so she just let out some forced laughter, as if wanting to ease the embarrassment but only succeeding in making things more embarrassing for Shuiyu. If you dare to speak impertinently again, I'll kill you. Shuiyu ground her teeth and put on a look of absolute anger towards Yang Kai, as if trying to clarify her stance. Are you willing? Yang Kai sneered, looking directly into Shuiyu's eyes. Shuiyu was speechless, her teeth grinding even harder as her Saint Chi began showing signs of welling up. Ni Guang's eyes narrowed and he let out a slight snicker. Young man, your courage isn't small, actually daring to speak such nonsense in front of this old master. No wonder third young master has an interest in you, but the nonsense stops here. No more trying to stir up trouble just to prove a point. Yang Kai grinned and shrugged his shoulders. Since Ni Guang had given him such a warning, he could only comply. In fact, Yang Kai was only angry that Shuiyu had made things difficult for him and was trying to get some revenge. After speaking, Ni Guang closed his eyes again, as if nothing happened just now. On the contrary, uncertainty flashed across Luo Lan's eyes as she stared at Yang Kai and Shuiyu for a while, as if trying to figure out if there really was some unspeakable secret between them. Did the famous Shuiyu third young master really like men and not women? Why else would he have looked so guilty just now? What exactly had transpired between these two shocking talents? Just thinking about it for a moment caused Luo Lan's face to blush. Come here. Shuiyu suddenly spat out a breath, the blush on her face receding like a tide before she coldly called Yang Kai out and flew away. She obviously wanted to find a more private location to talk with Yang Kai, lest he say something even more embarrassing. Yang Kai frowned and wanted to ignore Shuiyu, but thinking about what kind of reaction Ni Guang might have, he sighed and followed after her. Young people are always ignorant and arrogant. Elder Luo doesn't need to pay them any mind. After the two left, Ni Guang suddenly muttered, "Ha. It is as Senior Ni says." Luo Lan gave a light laugh. 30 kilometers or so away from the entrance, Shuiyu stopped and turned to look back, her beautiful eyes flashing a complicated light. After Yang Kai came over, she immediately shouted, "Why are you acting like this? Why are you doing this?" Yang Kai asked back, "What's wrong with me doing this?" Shuiyu grit her teeth. "You could have just pretended to not see me and then nothing would have happened. Why drag me over to follow you?" Yang Kai spat, his stomach full of grievances. "Don't you know how dangerous the severed world is? Even origin kings cannot guarantee their safety there. I asked Uncle and I to let you join us to protect your safety. You really don't know how to appreciate other people's kindness." Shuiyu snapped angrily, almost spitting in Yang Kai's face. Hearing this though, Yang Kai just smiled slyly as he stared at Shuiyu's face. "What?" Shuiyu began feeling somewhat anxious being stared at so aggressively and could not help taking 2 steps back. "Didn't you want to kill me? Since when do you care so much about my safety?" Yang Kai smiled and said, "I know your secret, so wouldn't it be perfect for you if I died? That way your secret will never be exposed. You are paying so much attention to me now though, it's almost as if you've fallen for me. Is that what this is all about? Beautiful?" Shuiyu heard this, curled her lips into a grin, and snickered. "Stop projecting your delusions onto me. Just who do you think you are? Why would I, Shuiyu, ever be interested in a shameless guy like you?" Yang Kai furrowed his brow hearing this and began stroking his chin, as if he was lost in thought. Seeing this caused Shui Yu's heart to clench because she thought she had wounded his self-esteem, instantly becoming a bit regretful. However, in the next instant, Yang Kai suddenly said earnestly, "Aren't women supposed to have special feelings for their first man? Am I wrong? Who is whose first man?" Shui Yu ground her teeth hard as she spat angrily. "Although there hasn't been much progress between you and me, at the very least, we've been intimate with no barriers between." Before Yang Kai could finish his thought though, his expression changed, and he reached out to grasp towards the void in front of him. Suddenly, a burst of Saint Qi erupted as Shui Yu's hand was caught by Yang Kai's in a tight grip. With a loud bang, Yang Kai's body shook slightly, but he did not retreat, instead taking the opportunity to clasp Shui Yu's little hand and twist her around before using his free arm to lock her neck, holding her firmly in place. Shui Yu still wanted to struggle, but Yang Kai had moved too fast for her to react. In an instant, Shui Yu was subdued. Her face changed slightly as she whispered, "When did you become so strong? Don't look down on others too much, beautiful," Yang Kai said while whispering into her ear. "Moreover, isn't wanting to fight the moment we meet growing tiresome for you too? Let go." Shui Yu bit her thin lip lightly. The hot breath on her ear made it feel like lightning was coursing through her veins, and the intense heat pressing against her back involuntarily made Shui Yu recall all the intimacy she had shared with Yang Kai on that dead star so many years ago. Naturally, whenever she thought about that time, full of unbridled contact. "Let me go." Shui Yu struggled, but found that she could not escape from Yang Kai's grip at all. Her voice couldn't help lowering to a whisper. "If someone sees this, how do you plan to explain?" Yang Kai stared at her red earlobes and laughed frivolously. "Your mouth says no, but your body is still quite honest." These ambiguous words only made Shui Yu feel even more embarrassed. Taking a deep breath and trying to sound as calm as possible, she said, "Don't make trouble. Can you let go now? I promise I won't act against you again." Yang Kai thought for a moment before nodding. Good. Shui Yu's attack just now did not carry any murderous intent. Obviously, she did not want his life, only to shut him up. So Yang Kai didn't take it to heart. Having reached an agreement, Yang Kai released Shui Yu's hands. The moment she regained her freedom, Shui Yu instantly opened a dozen-meter distance between her and Yang Kai before turning around and glowering at him, wishing she could eat his flesh and drink his blood. After a while, though, she adjusted her somewhat messy clothes and calmed her mood. "Tell me, what is your real goal here?" Yang Kai's expression turned extremely serious, completely different from the lawless and obscene one he was just wearing. Seeing this, Shui Yu had some trouble adapting. "You didn't ask that Ni Guang to invite me along for no reason. What do you want?" "I said it was for your own good. Don't you believe me?" Shui Yu raised her brow. "So you really do like me?" Yang Kai said deeply. "Shameless." Yang Kai laughed loudly. "Just kidding. Don't be so serious." Shui Yu had to take a few deep breaths this time to regain her calm. "In the Emperor Garden, we never got to finish our transaction, or have you forgotten? Deal?" Yang Kai frowned. "What deal? You really forgot?" Shui Yu looked at him and sneered dismissively. "So that's how it is. It looks like you were too busy flirting with that enchantress from Monster Emperor Star and completely forgot about what I said." Yang Kai grinned as he said, "Is that jealousy I hear?" "Don't flatter yourself," Shui Yu yelled angrily. "However, how did you know that she came from Monster Emperor Star? Did you investigate her later?" Yang Kai tilted his head and looked at her. "Did I even need to?" Shui Yu raised her chin slightly and coldly snorted. "Where else but Monster Emperor Star could you find that kind of shameless enchantress? Seems you did inquire about her." Yang Kai muttered to himself. "Forget it, enough about that. I remember the deal you mentioned. Took you long enough. Where is it now then?" "You mean the stone tablet which came out of the stone monument?" "Yes." Yang Kai frowned slightly. Naturally, he remembered the scene from that time and about the transaction between himself and Shui Yu. Shui Yu had said at the time that as long as he handed over the stone tablet, the grievances between her and Yang Kai would be wiped clean and she would never trouble him again. At that time, Yang Kai had also agreed, but before he could hand the stone tablet over to Shuiyu, the Emperor Garden closed without warning, resulting in them being unable to complete the exchange. Later, Yang Kai learned that what was hidden in the stone tablet was the shocking star refining art secret technique. This was a supreme secret technique which allowed one to refine a star source, thus becoming a star master. Little senior sister Xianxia had been able to refine Tong Xian realm star source at the Saint King realm for two reasons. One was because Tong Xian realm had grown incredibly weak, and second because of the star refining art. If either of these two factors had been missing, with Xianxia's cultivation at the time, she would not have been able to successfully refine Tong Xian realm star source and become its star master. This was undoubtedly a secret technique that could shake the very foundation of the star field and set off a massive, bloody war. Its value was simply immeasurable. Knowing nothing about the star refining art, Yang Kai had not had any qualms about exchanging it for his peace of mind. But now that he did, it was, of course, impossible for him to hand it over easily, even if the other party was Shuiyu. The relationship between the two of them was still somewhat unclear. So how could Yang Kai just give her such an incredible secret technique casually? Do you know what is recorded on that stone tablet? Yang Kai asked seriously. I don't know. Shuiyu shook her head. You don't know, but you still want it? Although I do not know what is recorded on it, I know it is the key to allowing my father to break through to the Third Order Origin King. So I have to obtain it. President AIO? Yang Kai raised his brow. Shuiyu's father was naturally President AIO of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Yang Kai had heard about this famous character before, but had never met him. Currently, what Yang Kai knew was that AIO was a second-order origin king that had been unable to break through to the Third Order for many years. Even so, with the backing of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, AIO was not an existence that could be underestimated. Yes. So I hope you can give me that stone tablet so I can give it to my father. Shuiyu looked at Yang Kai sincerely. How can you be so certain of what is recorded on it? Why are you confident that your father can break through to the Third Order after obtaining it? You don't even know what it is. Shuiyu smiled and said, My Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce has a glorious inheritance stretching back over 10,000 years, so we possess some information that is not known to the public. This is something you should understand. Yang Kai nodded as he pondered to himself. In a sense, Shuiyu was right. The star refining art may really be the key to AIO's breakthrough to the Third Order. After all, with the identity and heritage of AIO, a veteran origin king, and the star refining art, it would not be impossible for him to refine a star source, and once he succeeded, he would surely be able to successfully break through after receiving the blessings from that star source. Of course, there would be some unavoidable risks involved in this process, risks that could result in his very soul being extinguished. After understanding this, though, Yang Kai was also secretly surprised by the information held by Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. The star refining art was sealed in a stone monument deep inside the Emperor Garden, and before the stone monument was smashed, Yang Kai had not noticed anything out of the ordinary about it, but it seemed Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce knew about it in advance. I hope you can give me that thing. Shuiyu looked at Yang Kai sincerely. Even if it's just a copy, it doesn't matter. That stone tablet recorded some kind of secret technique or secret art, right? If that is the case, I don't need the original stone tablet ontology. A copy will be enough. I need to think about this. Yang Kai thought for a while before saying, No problem. Shuiyu readily agreed. But before you make a decision, you'll have to act together with me. Yang Kai chuckled. With Ni Guang watching, I think it's impossible for me to get away from you. Who knows, your strongest talent is definitely escaping from trouble. So if I'm not careful, you'll certainly try to flee. Shuiyu snorted softly. That's why I let Uncle and I invite you. This was Shuiyu's main purpose in having Ni Guang invite Yang Kai to travel with them. When she saw Yang Kai arrive, Shuiyu knew that it was the perfect opportunity for her to finish the business between them. Since we have reached an agreement, let's go back. The entrance to that place will open soon. Once we enter, do not run around aimlessly. Shui warned sternly. Understood. Soon after, the pair returned to the vicinity of the entrance again. And I Guang still had his eyes closed while Luolan also stood aside and waited quietly. Seeing the two reappear, Luolan just gently nodded and did not ask anything. Xueyu. Yang Kai suddenly approached Xueyu and called out softly. What do you want? Xueyu asked slightly nervously, frowning as she asked, Can you not get so close? Yang Kai glanced at her strangely before asking, Who are the people here? Do you know? Xueyu said, Some I know, some I don't. Then that person. Do you know who he is? Yang Kai said while glancing towards a certain direction. Xueyu quietly glanced over in the direction Yang Kai had looked and found an Origin King Realm Master covered in thick black qi with his face completely concealed. The black qi around this man was like a living creature, twisting and churning in indistinct patterns, giving off an uncomfortable aura that made those nearby shudder. I've never seen or heard of him. Xueyu shivered involuntarily and whispered back, Why? Is there something wrong with him? I don't know if I'm thinking too much, but I felt like he was paying attention to me for a while now. Yang Kai frowned. Xueyu was stunned. Naturally, she didn't think Yang Kai was imagining things. Yang Kai's strength was not weak, and if someone was spying on him, he would definitely sense something. So since he had said so, it was very likely the master wrapped in black qi was paying attention to him. As if to confirm Yang Kai's statement, when Xueyu secretly stole a glance towards the other party, from the thick black qi a strange, grating cackle rang out. Xueyu's face turned pale. This person is very dangerous. Don't provoke him. And I Guang suddenly opened his eyes and whispered in a serious tone. Uncle and I, what is his background? Xueyu asked. I don't know, and I Guang shook his head. Of all the Origin Kings I know and know of, none of them are similar to this person, but this old master can tell he is very strong, possibly not weaker than me. So, he's also a second-order Origin King? I can't say for certain if he is a second-order, only if I fought with him would I be able to confirm it. And I Guang said slowly. Regardless, don't provoke him. This person's aura is filled with cold, evil energy. So he must have cultivated some kind of demonic secret art. I understand. Xueyu nodded obediently. Next, in order to prevent Yang Kai from provoking someone who he shouldn't, Xueyu carefully introduced him to the origins and identities of the Origin Kings present. There were more than 10 people present and Xueyu knew 8 of them. The rest she was not certain about but was able to make some guesses. Yang Kai made sure to remember the appearances and identities of these masters in mind, in case of emergencies. Outside the entrance, everyone continued to wait quietly. From time to time, a new Origin King would rush over, find an open spot and close their eyes to rest. About 3 days later, a bright stream of purple light, which was particularly eye-catching, suddenly appeared from the distant starry sky. When this purple light appeared, and I Guang suddenly opened his eyes and stared deeply towards it, a slight frown appearing on his face as he coldly muttered, That old dog also came. He seemed to know the identity of this person at a glance. Oh well, since he's come, we can get started. And I Guang muttered again. The aura which radiated from this purple stream of light was extremely powerful, not at all under an I Guang's. So it was apparent that whoever had arrived was a master at the second-order Origin King realm. Aware of this, the faces of the first-order Origin Kings who had already arrived changed slightly. Only the figure wrapped in black qi let out a strange laugh, not caring at all about this new arrival. Soon, the purple light arrived nearby and came to a stop before rapidly dissipating, revealing 2 figures. Both of these two had a similar body shape, strong and burly, as if they had been carved from the same mold. On top of that, they both shared the same long purple hair which draped down over their shoulders, giving them a free and unrestrained appearance. The two looked like brothers. However, if one looked closely, they would realize this was not the case, because the cultivation gap between the two was quite large. One of them was a second-order Origin King while the other was just a third-order Origin Realm cultivator, the same as Xueyu and Yang Kai. After these two appeared, their eyes swept around the crowd and soon fixed on the pair from Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. And I Guang and the second-order Origin King Master exchanged looks. Xueyu's gaze collided with the third-order Origin Realm cultivator. Neither side showed weakness, not even flinching, their expressions remaining calm. Ha ha ha! A loud burst of laughter sounded soon after as the purple-haired second-order origin king boldly called out, "It seems this old master has come a little late and made everyone wait. No one was waiting for you. Zilong, stop flattering yourself." And I Guang sneered. "Oh, I thought brother and I would have wished I had come here sooner." Zilong grinned meaningfully. "Even without you, this entrance can be opened. It would only take a few more people," and I Guang said lightly. "But since you are here, there's no point in waiting any longer. And, in that case, let's proceed." Zilong smiled. Hearing the conversation between the two, Yang Kai immediately realized who this man was. The purple-haired second-order origin king was none other than the sect master of Purple Star, Zilong. Realizing this, Yang Kai also understood that the third-order origin realm cultivator beside him was Purple Star's young master, Zidong. Yang Kai was not surprised that Zidong was here, because Gu Jian Xin had mentioned that Zidong and Shuiyu could be placed on equal footing with him, which meant Gu Jian Xin had acknowledged Zidong's strength. These three young men were the most famous talents in the entire star field, because the three of them represented the three different super forces and were considered future successors to them. Under these three, there were also many other famous rising stars, such as the disciple of Senior Wu Dao, Subin Bai, Shan Qing Luo of Monster Emperor Star, and the heirs to the several monster race tribal lords. However, none had reputations as loud as these three. It was undeniable that the future of the star field would be dominated by these people. Yang Kai didn't know if there was some kind of grievances between Zidong and Shuiyu, or if it was just the competitive spirit of the younger generation. But as soon as these two met, both of them seemed eager to fight one another, creating some tension in the air. But now was not a good time for such things. The arrival of Zilong allowed the entrance to be opened, so with Ni Guang and Zilong taking charge, all of the gathered origin kings began preparing. After a brief discussion, the origin kings on the scene scattered around, each assuming a position near the entrance, waiting intently. Then, "Shall we begin?" Zilong cast his gaze over to Ni Guang and asked inquisitively. Ni Guang nodded lightly, and in the next moment, a majestic Saint Chi burst out of his body as he formed a complex series of signs with his hands before pushing his hands forward. A beam of energy visible to the naked eye shot out from his palms and poured into the white circular entrance. Zilong let out a hearty laugh and also began pouring his Saint Chi into the entrance. The other origin kings present followed suit one after another. Even the man wrapped in black Chi who had yet to reveal his face, and appeared incredibly suspicious, did not slack off and cooperated with everyone else in this act. Soon, a humming sound rang out from the white entrance, and the void cracks which had originally been freely flowing about seemed to be restrained by an invisible power, freezing in place. As for the entrance itself, it seemed to have become a bottomless pit, devouring all the Saint Chi poured into it by the many origin kings present without showing any signs of stopping. Among all the people present, only Yang Kai, Shuiyu, and Zidong, who were origin realm cultivators, did not participate and simply watched from the sidelines. This was not a surprise though, as they were still incomparable to true origin kings no matter how good their aptitude was, or how profound their heritage was. What they could contribute to this kind of forceful opening of the entrance to the severed world was like a drop of water in the ocean, so instead of wasting their energy, it was better for them to retain their strength to deal with any possible dangers they faced after entering the severed world. Time passed slowly. The expressions of each origin king became difficult as they continued to pour their Saint Chi into the entrance, causing them a great deal of consumption. Fortunately, they had prepared a lot of pills to restore their Saint Chi in advance and were taking them regularly to supplement their losses. The difference in cultivation also became apparent. For first-order origin kings such as Luolan and Cui Hong, their faces now had fine beads of sweat dripping down them and their bodies were trembling slightly. Only the second-order masters such as Ni Guang and Zilong were able to retain a calm image. More and more void cracks became fixed at the entrance, and with the infusion of Saint Chi, the unstable fluctuations of these void crack gradually dissipated, leaving behind only stable void cracks. Seeing this, Yang Kai realized how everyone would enter the severed world. Soon after, Yang Kai's conjectures were proven correct. When the number of stable void cracks reached a certain number around the primary white entrance, Enai Guang suddenly shouted, "Good!" As soon as these words fell, all the Origin Kings stopped pouring in their Saint Chi into the void, picked one of the stable void cracks, and dashed inside. After someone passed through one of the stabilized void cracks, the void crack started to destabilize and begin flitting about again. Enai Guang and Luo Lan stood side by side, beckoned to Yang Kai and Shuiyu, and after converging together, released their Saint Chi and rushed towards the biggest void crack. From a short distance away, a purple streak of light flew past and Zilong's laughter rang out. "Brother and I, this old master will be going on ahead. Make sure you don't die inside." As soon as these words came out, Zilong took Zidong and disappeared into one of the entrances. Enai Guang coldly snorted and rushed into the largest void crack. Suddenly, the surrounding space became silent and empty. After everyone disappeared, the entrances began to warp and distort, with more and more void cracks constantly emerging, turning the temporarily stable region into one filled with even more danger than before. It was conceivable that even if just as many Origin Kings gathered here, they would be unable to open the entrance again. If one wanted to enter this place, they could only wait for the next opportunity, and when that would be was completely unknown. After Yang Kai followed Luo Lan into the void crack, he felt a sense of weightlessness, as if he was falling towards an endless abyss, and his soul felt a great deal of pressure. These were all telltale signs of a substantial spatial transmission. Yang Kai could perceive that Luo Lan was working hard to resist the pressure coming at her from all directions, but such a transmission was really nothing to him. After all, he was proficient in Space Force, so he had long adapted to this kind of Space Force pressure. The entire transmission process was extremely fast, almost feeling like a single flash before Yang Kai's eyes were greeted by a completely different world scenery. The sky was dim, and chaotic energy fluctuations abounded. There was no sun, nor moon, nor stars. The land was dry and desolate, without a single blade of grass and only dried up, cracked ravines. The place where everyone appeared was in midair, so as soon as they entered, they immediately descended to the ground. Yang Kai turned his head around and found that Enai Guang, Shuiyu, and Luo Lan were all there. However, no one else seemed to be around. This was also easy to understand. After all, each group entered this place through different void cracks, and for each void crack, there would naturally be a different teleportation location. Circulating their Saint Chi, the four descended lightly, with Enai Guang and Luo Lan both showing relieved expressions. "Fortunately, we didn't appear somewhere dangerous," Luo Lan said softly while Enai Guang nodded in agreement. Feeling their luck was already quite good. It was not always a smooth process for Origin Kings to enter the severed world. Without even mentioning the many crises that could not be resolved by Origin Kings in this place, it was even said that there were dangers one could encounter upon entering this place that would pose a threat to ordinary Origin Kings. Other than encountering an extremely powerful monster beast, it was entirely possible to fall as soon as one entered this place. There were many 9th-order monster beasts here, with a few 10th-order monster beasts as well. There were even rumors about legendary 11th order and 12th order monster beasts existing here, but luck seemed to be on their side for now. After landing, Yang Kai noticed that this place was quite different from the star field. The world principles here seemed to be extremely powerful, and while his Saint Chi and spiritual energy did not seem to be affected, his Shur was quite heavily suppressed. Trying to release his Shur, Yang Kai found that it was less than half as powerful as normal. Perceiving his movements, Shuiyu said to the side, "Don't bother. Everyone is like this. Not only our Shur, but even Uncle Ni's domain is suppressed here. The world principles here are powerful and profound, having a strong impact on both Shur and domain." Yang Kai nodded lightly, his expression slightly relaxed. Enai Guang looked around and released his divine sense. Only after confirming that there was nothing that could threaten him nearby, he turned his head to Luo Lan and said, "Elder Luo, what are you planning to do next?" Luo Lan was startled and asked suspiciously, "Senior and I means?" Enai Guang pondered for a while before saying, "Let me be blunt. The reason this old master invited you was because third young master wanted the young man accompanying us. As for Elder Luo, you were not part of this consideration. Before we entered this place, this old master did not have anything to say. But now that we are inside, this old master would like to clarify if you intend to act together with us or alone. Let me say this first though, this young man must accompany this old master. Although he did not know why Xueyu insisted on having Yang Kai come with them, he knew that Xueyu never did anything without a purpose. Since Xueyu wanted to keep Yang Kai close, she must have a good reason. Seeing Luolan sink in contemplation, Guang said, "If you come with this old master, it will be much safer for you. But this old master won't guarantee you will gain any benefits. If you separate from this old master, although the risks will be higher, if you can obtain some rare opportunity here, it will be worthwhile." What Guang meant was that even if they found something good here, he would not give anything to Luolan unless she contributed enough strength to help obtain it. "I understand," Luolan nodded. "But I still want to travel with you. After all, Yang Kai was brought here by me, so this mistress cannot just abandon him here." She did not dare act alone without Yang Kai. Before learning that Yang Kai was proficient in Space Force, Luolan had not even planned on coming to the Severed World. She had received word of this place's opening some time ago, but since she could not guarantee her own safety, she had not thought about entering. Her coming here was a decision she made almost entirely based on knowing Yang Kai was proficient in the Tao of Space. As such, she did not want to be separated from Yang Kai. Seeing her make this choice, Guang didn't show any change in expression. "If that is the case, we'll go together. Just curious, Elder Luo, what is the main goal of your trip?" Luolan glanced over at Yang Kai, pursed her lips and smiled. "I have no special goal in mind. I simply plan to explore at will." She did not dare to say she was after a shocking void beast. Otherwise, with Guang's shrewdness, he would definitely be able to infer something. The group of 4 people decided to find a nearby place to adjust their breathing after some discussions. After all, the process of opening the entrance to the Severed World had caused both Guang and Luolan to consume a great deal of their Saint Qi just now. In a place like this, which was filled with crisis, they needed to maintain their peak condition in order to cope with whatever they may encounter next. Fortunately, there was not any obvious danger nearby, so Guang simply led the group to the bottom of a ravine to conceal themselves. The ravines here were quite deep and narrow, spreading out in all directions like a series of long canyons. After flying down and looking up, only a faint light could be seen, indicating they were at least a couple thousand meters below the surface. At the bottom of the ravine, a chilly wind gusted continuously. Yang Kai and Xueyu were still at full strength, and although they were not Origin Kings, their strength wasn't weak, so they were responsible for standing guard. Guang and Luolan each chose a location not far apart, took some pills, and sat down cross-legged to meditate. Yang Kai guarded Luolan while Xueyu guarded Guang, each side performing their own duties. The world seemed silent, with only the noise of the blustering wind echoing through the gully adding to the eerie stillness. Xueyu glanced around from time to time, seeming a little nervous. Regardless of how high her cultivation was or how strong she was still a woman. So, in such a gloomy environment, she instinctually became more vigilant. Yang Kai wore an indifferent look as he simply closed his eyes and released his divine sense to monitor the surroundings to avoid any accidents. Time passed slowly, and after an unknown period, Yang Kai suddenly opened his eyes. He found himself lying on a bed, one that was wooden and quite uncomfortable. Looking up, he saw a simple roof which had holes in it and was leaking air everywhere. Turning around, the furnishings in this house were extremely sparse, with only a simple table and a chair, nothing else. The scene felt quite familiar. Yang Kai could not help showing some doubt on his face as his mind felt hazy, making it impossible for him to think straight. He instinctively felt that something was wrong, as if he had forgotten something important, and tried hard to remember, but this only caused a sharp pain in his head. He could not even remember what he was doing before. Shaking his head, Yang Kai got up from the simple wooden bed before opening the door and walking out. Standing in front of the small house, he took a look around, Memories suddenly flooded back to him like a tide, and Xianxia immediately recalled that he was currently a trial disciple of High Heaven Pavilion. But because he had been here for almost 3 years yet failed to meet the requirements of the sect to become a formal disciple, he could only do odd jobs to earn a living while doing his best to cultivate at the same time. There was a broom outside the house, and at this moment, the sky was not yet bright. It seemed to be the darkest hour before dawn. Xianxia could not help chuckling before stepping forward, picking up the broom, and beginning his day's work. The sect had various roads which lead from the contribution hall to the training hall, the martial skills hall, and so on, all of which had the shadow of Xianxia's busy figure. All the roads were cleaned by him as he was the lowest-level disciple of High Heaven Pavilion, little more than a laborer. As the sun rose and the day became light, many of Xianxia's fellow brothers gathered around, ready to challenge him. In the end, a junior brother who only had a 4th-stage tempered body cultivation won the right to challenge him, proceeded to trounce Xianxia, then left. Lying on the ground, breathing heavily, feeling his weakness and physical pain, Xianxia slowly clenched his fists. Subconsciously, his gaze shifted towards a big tree not far away. Atop the big tree, there was a figure standing quietly, her face difficult to see because it was covered by a thin veil. Her figure was slim and there was a small sapphire which adorned her brow, giving her a pure and flawless appearance. Xianxia looked at her quietly, inexplicably feeling that this woman was incredibly important to him, but unable to understand why he felt this way. Their eyes only met for a moment before the veiled woman's body flickered and disappeared. The disappearance of this woman caused Xianxia to feel a little pain in his heart, as if it was being gripped by a strong hand, making it difficult for him to breathe. Xianxia shook his head and picked himself up off the ground with difficulty, collected his broom off the ground, then step by step returned to his little cabin. In the end, he failed to meet the sect's requirements before the time limit and ultimately failed to become a true disciple of High Heaven Pavilion. Having been expelled from High Heaven Pavilion, Xianxia quietly packed up his things into a small sack, then descended the mountain road he had walked countless times before. Standing in front of the mountain gate, Xianxia looked back at the plaque engraved with the 3 words, High Heaven Pavilion, and paused, as his thoughts fluttered. He was only 15 years old now, but his future had already been lost. At the base of the mountain, a group of senior brothers and senior sisters were walking over, headed by a certain person holding a sword in her hand, her temperament as cold and clear as ice jade. She was like an ice fairy, exquisite and unblemished. She wore a pure white dress which was unstained by even the slightest bit of dust and was like the bright moon around which the stars gathered. Standing in the middle of her group, which was laughing and chatting, she soon arrived near Xianxia. Perceiving his abnormal state, the lead woman stopped, turned to Xianxia, and lightly opened her lips. "Junior brother, are you descending the mountain?" Xianxia turned his head and looked towards the source of the voice, but after seeing the other person's face, he could not help feeling startled and blurting out, "Su Yan." As soon as he spoke this name though, Xianxia became startled. Although he had been in High Heaven Pavilion for 3 years now and was familiar with this eldest senior sister, even witnessing her heroic posture many times, the two of them had never exchanged a single word. After all, the eldest senior sister of High Heaven Pavilion was a lofty, aloof existence while Xianxia was just a trial disciple. There was too much of a difference in strength and identity between them to simply casually chat. He did not know why he would suddenly call out the other party's name, and with such familiarity, as if he had called it countless times. It was as if he had done so in a state of dreamlike reverie. Su Yan's brow furrowed, but her expression did not change much. However, the few senior brothers and senior sisters who were accompanying her, who were all not weak, immediately cast contemptuous eyes towards Xianxia. One of the more hot-tempered senior brothers even coldly snorted and without the slightest trace of politeness snapped, "Eldest senior sister's name is not one you are qualified to call out." As soon as these words fell, a palm slapped towards Xianxia. A residual palm wind blew past him as Xianxia was lifted up and thrown through the air, tumbling a few times before hitting the ground, blood overflowing from his mouth. His clothes covered in dust, making him look quite disheveled. Yang Kai was indifferent to the physical pain though and continued to frown as he fell to the ground, as if he had fallen into deep thought. He did not understand why things were like this, all so familiar yet at the same time completely unfamiliar to him. A fragrant wind brushed past Yang Kai's nose in the next second as he saw a pair of jade feet land not far away. Looking up, he could see the beautiful and awe-inspiring image of Su Yan standing before him, like an immortal fairy. Eldest senior sister. Don't bother with him. The senior brother who hit Yang Kai before coldly snorted with an unhappy look on his face. Su Yan did not respond to him though and instead stretched out her hand to Yang Kai, as if she wanted to help him up. Yang Kai hesitated for a moment before reaching out, taking Su Yan's palm gently and picking himself up. The senior brother who already had a low opinion of Yang Kai now wore a twisted face as he glared at him with clear rage and hatred. Never had he expected that he had allowed Yang Kai to touch eldest senior sister's hand because of a simple beating. Yang Kai stood dumbly on the spot while Su Yan stretched out her hand and patted the dust off his body, the seemingly eternal coldness on her face giving way to a slight warmth. This gentle appearance stunned Yang Kai into a kind of trance. The outside world is extremely dangerous. After junior brother descends the mountain, he should set off as early as possible and be careful on the road. The sooner you depart, the earlier you will return. Su Yan exhorted lightly before taking a deep look at Yang Kai, then turning around and continuing on towards High Heaven Pavilion. Yang Kai just stood in place and watched her leave, his heart feeling inexplicably empty as her figure slowly faded. From the distance, the ridicule of the senior brother who had hit Yang Kai drifted over vaguely. Eldest senior sister. That guy is just a trial disciple who was expelled from sect and will never return. There's no need to worry about him. Is that so? Su Yan's voice sounded lightly. He should be back. The beautiful woman's figure continued into the distance until it finally disappeared. Yang Kai's gaze turned towards a different spot next, and in a remote corner, he saw another familiar senior sister wearing a green dress and a white veil covering her face standing there quietly. A sudden gust of wind blew past at that moment, moving her veil and allowing Yang Kai to see her red lips moving slightly, as if she was saying something to him. However, they were too far apart and Yang Kai was unable to hear what she said clearly. Before he could ask though, this senior sister disappeared. In the end, all he ever learned about this senior sister was her name, Xianxia. For some reason, this was a name he felt he would remember for the rest of his life. Yang Kai picked up his bag which had fallen to the ground, turned around, and strode away. Yang Kai did not take part in the Yang family inheritance war in the central capital because he wasn't strong enough and was unable to win over any support. Even participating would have been pointless. His eldest brother Yang Wei successfully became the next candidate for Yang family patriarch with his own extraordinary strength and prestige, earning him the hopes of the family and their vigorous training. Time flew by and soon Yang Kai turned 18. His father, Yang Yingfeng, and his mother, Dong Suzhu, arranged a marriage for him. The other party was a woman from his mother's family, and they were considered a good match. Yang Kai did not have much choice in the matter, of course. His persistent pursuit of the martial Tao had yielded almost no gains, and as a member of the Yang family, he had to at least contribute something to the Yang family by leaving behind descendants. He married the woman smoothly and fathered a few children. During the day, he would work hard in one of the Yang family's businesses, and at night he would return to his home and spend a pleasant time with his family. His wife and children were always obedient and respectful to him. He lived a very happy family life. But, somewhere in Yang Kai's heart, he could not help feeling something was wrong. He felt that his life shouldn't be like this, that he should have had some kind of heaven-defying opportunity which set him on a completely different path. He tried to dispel such absurd thoughts but found that, like wine, the longer they fermented, the stronger they became, not dispersing but instead threatening to burst out at any moment. In addition, Yang Kai would occasionally see faces of people he was certain he never met before. There were men, women, old, and young among these people, all of whom he felt remarkably familiar with and could even call out their names. Old Demon, Ling Tai Su, Chu Ling Xiao, Fei Yu, Li Wan, Fei Jian, Song Yan, Li Rong, Han Fei, Shuiyu Wu Yi Yixiyun, Dai Yuan, Qian Tong. These people were entrenched in Yang Kai's subconscious mind, each of them seemingly calling out to him, constantly trying to tell him something. But Yang Kai was never able to hear what it was they were saying. The days passed without surprise or danger, and Yang Kai soon entered the twilight years of his life. At the age of 70, with a house full of children and grandchildren, his parents having passed away long ago, everything around Yang Kai seemed to have changed. The only thing that remained constant was the strange faces which kept appearing in his dreams. These faces were getting clearer and clearer, and their faint voices were now almost audible. Soon, a serious illness overcame Yang Kai and severely damaged his vitality. Lying on his bed, Yang Kai could hear loud cries coming from outside the room from his children and grandchildren, making him realize he had little time left. The wife who had accompanied him all his life had also lost her beautiful face by now and was just an ordinary old woman. But in these last moments, she still remained by his side, taking care of him diligently. This life was pretty good, right? Yang Kai thought feebly, looking at his wife beside his bed with muddy eyes, the long years having turned her hair gray. Yang Kai managed to squeeze out a smile at her after seeing this. But to Yang Kai's surprise, his wife, who had always been deferential to him in the past, at this moment, only wore a cold expression on her face as she glared at him. You? Yang Kai opened his mouth as he tried to speak. The other party cut in though with a crisp and sweet voice, which should not belong to that of an old woman but rather a young one. Finally, I'll be free. I have been dragged down by you for an entire lifetime. But at long last, I can be liberated. You? Why would you say that? Yang Kai looked at her sadly, his eyes full of pain and disappointment. Then what should I say? The other party sneered. Do you think I should be thankful to you? If it were not for your Yang family's overbearing strength, how could I have been forced to marry you all those years ago? You are just an ordinary, mediocre man, Yang Kai. If you were not born into the Yang family, you wouldn't even be as good as an ordinary mortal. Even so, you not only wasted your life but mine as well. Is this what you truly feel in your heart? Yes. Disappointed. The other party sneered, her smile cruel like she wanted to pierce a sharp knife into Yang Kai's heart. Yang Kai, however, just chuckled and closed his eyes. The old woman sitting by the bed smiled even colder. At that moment, though, Yang Kai suddenly muttered, I am not delusional. To be honest, you did well these past few decades, but I know. This is all just an illusion. What? The old woman's face changed drastically as she stood up and stared at Yang Kai incredulously. Do you know what you were saying? At this time, you want to tear face with me and deliver a devastating blow to my mind at the moment I am most satisfied in order to plunge me into despair. Right? Yang Kai opened his eyes again, the murkiness in them having disappeared and been replaced with a sharp light. Sneering, he retorted. Even those who are crying outside must be planning to rush in here soon and laugh at me as they watch me die, yes? How could you? The old woman's complexion went blue. Why wouldn't I have figured it out? I became aware of the truth more than 30 years ago, remembering everything that I should remember. Since you knew, why did you still cooperate? The old woman's face turned grim. Ha ha! Yang Kai smiled, sat up straight from the bed, and said, Because I have never experienced this kind of life, and since you gave me an opportunity, I wanted to take advantage of it. This was a perfect way to hone my state of mind, after all. The familiar yet unfamiliar faces which kept flashing across Yang Kai's mind, and the words they kept trying to convey to him, had finally made him remember everything all those years ago and allowed him to realize he had been caught in an elaborate illusion. Yang Kai was shocked at that time. He did not know when he had been ambushed, as he hadn't noticed the presence of any enemies. He remembered that he was standing guard over Luolan and Enaiguang with Shuiyu, but there were no threats around them at that time. The entire situation was too strange. This only proved that this mysterious enemy had such powerful spiritual energy that it was able to invade his knowledge sea without his knowing and tamper with his memories, affecting his very thoughts and making him forget what he should remember. Everything about his life had been twisted and changed, almost beyond recognition. When he realized this, Yang Kai did not rush to act. For one thing, he did not know who the enemy was, and taking action rashly might have unintended consequences. Secondly, as he said, this kind of life was something he had never experienced before, and it was indeed quite a wonderful experience. Of course, if his wife, who had accompanied him throughout his life, had continued to play her part and had sent him off peacefully, that would have been for the best. But at the last moment, she wanted to destroy Yang Kai's rare and precious experience in order to plunge him into desperation. In the end, a person will always have only one life. Living a second, alternative life was nothing but an extravagant dream. As for the matter of reincarnation, that was an elusive and ethereal concept. Even if reincarnation was real, who could reincarnate with the memories of their previous life, or even guarantee they would be human again in their next? Yang Kai, however, was able to experience something almost equivalent to that, although it was only for a short 70 years. When his voice fell, the crying children and grandchildren outside also stopped their meaningless play and instead began letting out eerie howls which could terrify any who heard them. The old woman sneered. "You think you can just sit back and relax after having seen through the illusion? You think too highly of yourself. If you had revealed it earlier, you might have been able to escape from this place. But after so much time has passed, it is now impossible for you to free yourself. Your soul will forever be trapped here." "Really?" Yang Kai's expression remained unchanged for a moment before he smirked. "It looks like you can't attack me directly and have to rely on manipulating my memories to influence me, right? With her abilities and their limitations so easily exposed." The old woman's expression darkened noticeably. After all, if she could directly attack, judging from the current situation, the old woman would not just stand by. In fact, it was her putting on a strong act and screaming that betrayed her lack of confidence. "We should put an end to this now, but I still must thank you. The experiences this life has given me have tempered my mind greatly, and I am much more confident about breaking through to the Origin King realm now." Yang Kai smiled lightly. Yang Kai's problem was that his strength had improved too quickly. Since he began cultivating until now, it had taken him less than 40 years to reach the third-order Origin returning realm. But great strength had to be matched with a strong mind and experience, otherwise, there was a great chance one would experience a dissonance in their cultivation. This was Yang Kai's greatest shortcoming. But this time's experience had made up for this deficiency, and no matter how much time or how little time had passed outside, in his mind 70 years had passed, giving him the necessary psychological accumulation he needed to break through to the next realm. He really wanted to thank this unknown party for giving him such an opportunity. This alone was enough to make this trip to the severed world worthwhile. Even if he obtained no gains during the following period here, it did not matter. Yang Kai now intended to find a place to break through to the Origin King realm after leaving the severed world and already had one destination in mind. He had great confidence in his ability to break through to the Origin King realm, and with this experience it was now almost a matter of course. As soon as Yang Kai spoke these words of thanks, the anxious-looking old woman suddenly distorted greatly, changing into an ominous black entity that screamed and howled as it lunged at Yang Kai. At the same time, a massive amount of black chi flowed in from outside the room and rushed towards Yang Kai like a tide. Yang Kai just snorted coldly, closed his eyes, then opened them again as he activated his Demon Eye of Annihilation. The Demon Eye of Annihilation had the profound ability to see through all illusions. As soon as the Demon Eye appeared, everything around Yang Kai began to collapse like a shattered mirror, beginning with the room, then the Yang family mansion, then the entire world. The black shadows that rushed towards Yang Kai did not harm him at all. As he had suspected, these black shadows had no direct means of attack and could only target the negative emotions in one's heart, causing them to fall into illusions. The black shadows passed through Yang Kai's body and disappeared. In the next moment, the illusion was broken. Yang Kai returned to the real world. Before he could react, though, a gust of cold wind hit him from behind, so he hurriedly rolled forward to avoid the attack. Jumping to his feet and fixing his stance, Yang Kai turned back to confront his attacker. What he saw was a kind of black shadow similar to the one in the illusion, but this mass of black shadows had the outline of a human, only lacking facial features but possessing arms and legs. It seemed that the previous illusions were all caused by this black shadow. And at this moment, it seemed this black shadow had suffered great damage. After all, it had used some kind of strange secret technique to drag Xianxia into that illusion, so once the illusion broke it was inevitable it suffered a backlash. Releasing a terrifying roar, the shadow pounced towards Xianxia again. Xianxia waved his hand and sent out a golden blood thread, cutting towards his opponent. But unexpectedly, the golden blood thread did not affect the shadow, passing through it directly without causing any effective damage. Xianxia frowned, pushed his Saint Chi, and sent out a heaven-covering hand. The huge palm covered the black shadow's body but also failed to affect it in any way. After only a brief delay, the shadow rushed forward again. The golden blood thread is useless, as is Saint Chi's secret techniques, it seems. Only spiritual energy attacks are useful against you. Xianxia sneered as he stood in place without moving, and a lotus bud appeared in his left eye. Blossoming Lotus Secret Technique. Xianxia's most powerful soul attack method. In the face of such a weird shadow, he did not dare experiment anymore and immediately used his trump card. The lotus pattern was fleeting, and in the next moment, it appeared around the black shadow's body. The lotus bud began to bloom slowly, using the black shadow's own power as a source of energy. The black shadow suddenly stopped in place less than a meter from Xianxia and collapsed to the ground, howling constantly. By the time the lotus flower fully bloomed, the black shadow had already disappeared, leaving behind only a black lotus in its place which immediately collapsed and scattered to the wind. Only now did Xianxia have the time to investigate the situation of the others in his group. Luo Lan was the closest to him, and when Xianxia turned his head and looked towards her, he saw another human-shaped black shadow standing behind this first-order origin king. This black shadow was the same as the one he had eliminated just now and also strangely had no face. At this moment, the black shadow was standing right behind Luo Lan, and from its head, a tendril was protruding and had attached itself to the back of Luo Lan's head. A malevolent aura radiated from the black shadow's body, which was clearly affecting Luo Lan's mind and pulling her soul into an illusion. Xianxia didn't know what kind of illusion Luo Lan was seeing, but her tender body was constantly trembling, and her complexion was fluctuating rapidly. Beads of sweat were dripping down her forehead, and her breathing had become somewhat erratic. There's more than one of these things? Xianxia was startled. He thought that the enemy that attacked him and Luo Lan was the same entity, but now that he had a chance to observe the situation, he realized there were more than one of these strange creatures. Glancing over towards Xueyu and Ni Guang in the distance, Xianxia discovered that their situation was the same as Luo Lan's: black, faceless, human-like shadows lurking behind them, manipulating them through some kind of illusion. Clearly, no one had noticed when these shadows attacked, because even Ni Guang had been affected. Looking at them like this, Xianxia was certain they were in similar situations to the one he was in earlier. The whipping winds at the bottom of the ravine suddenly carried over several howling voices at that moment. Xianxia felt a chill hearing these voices, and upon turning his head around, his complexion could not help paling. Stunned, Xianxia discovered that, in all directions, countless humanoid shadows were appearing from the cracks in the earth. As soon as these shadows manifested, they turned their faceless faces towards Xianxia, and even though they lacked eyes, he could not help feeling as he was being stared at menacingly. There are so many of them. Xianxia's expression truly changed now. Without hesitating, he rushed towards Luo Lan, gathered his spiritual energy into a spike, and struck the black shadow behind her back. Xianxia's spiritual energy was incredibly powerful, not inferior to that of a master like Ni Guang's. So just this attack was enough to damage the black shadow which was attacking Luo Lan. Shaking violently, the shadow dimmed greatly, as if it had suffered a serious injury. With one more strike from his divine sense, Xianxia was able to completely dislodge the black shadow, which let out a miserable cry before dissipating. Xianxia calmed down after seeing this, realizing that these black shadows were not powerful and could easily be destroyed. The problem, however, was there were too many of them. Once the black shadow was extinguished, Luo Lan let out a cough as she finally broke free of the illusion, opened her eyes, and saw Xianxia close at hand. Her eyes still showed some confusion though, indicating she was still suffering some aftereffects of the illusion. Yang Kai quickly shouted at her. Senior Luo, wake up quickly if you don't want to die. Use your spiritual energy to deal with them. Them? Luo Lan frowned slightly. Who? There was no need for Yang Kai to answer as, at that moment, many howling shadows rushed towards Luo Lan and Yang Kai. Luo Lan let out a strange cry seeing this and finally reacted, stretching out her hand and summoning a hiltless dagger which released a radiating light from its blade. Under her control, the dagger flickered back and forth, cutting down any black shadow it impacted and scattering it to the wind. When all was said and done, she was still an Origin King, and this dazzling dagger was obviously a powerful soul-type artifact. Driven by her spiritual energy, it was the nemesis of these dark shadows. Upon seeing this, Yang Kai composed himself and shouted, Hold them back while I wake up Senior and I and Shueyu. Hurry! Cold sweat dripped from Luo Lan's forehead as she urged. Even though she had only fought against these dark shadows for a short while, she already sensed how difficult it would be to withstand an attack from such a dense horde of them. Luo Lan fought as she retreated towards the location where Enai Guang and Shueyu were together with Yang Kai. As for the black shadows blocking the way, they were all defeated by Yang Kai's spiritual energy. Although he didn't have a soul-type artifact like Luo Lan, his soul cultivation was extremely strong, so he didn't have trouble clearing out a few of the black shadows. Soon, Yang Kai arrived by Enai Guang's side and sent a spike of his spiritual energy into the black humanoid figure attacking the latter. After 2 strikes, Enai Guang was freed. The moment the black shadow was defeated, Enai Guang opened his eyes suddenly and a terrible pressure burst from his body. Standing up sharply, he shouted, Evil creature! You dare try to disturb this old master's mind? Damn! It almost succeeded too. Looking at his momentum, Yang Kai realized he was in much better condition than Luo Lan. At the very least, even if Enai Guang had been caught off guard, he realized the true nature of his situation. The reason he had not been able to wake himself up must have been because he didn't have a way to break the illusion he was trapped inside of. After receiving Yang Kai's help, he immediately regained control of himself. With a flick of his sleeve, Enai Guang sent out a powerful shockwave in all directions. Senior Enai, these things aren't affected by Saint Qi or artifacts. They can only be damaged by spiritual energy attacks. Yang Kai quickly informed him. So that's how it is. Enai Guang quickly understood and immediately opened his mouth to spit out a small round bead. As soon as this bead appeared, it released a burst of light that, while bright, was also extremely gentle, bathing the surrounding area in a warm glow like sunlight. With the round bead as the center, a 10-meter radius became a pure region. All the black shadows that rushed into the light barrier distorted and, while screaming, quickly faded into nothingness. It was like watching snowflakes falling into a hot fire, evaporating without a trace in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, Yang Kai felt relieved and hurried over to Shueyu's side and repeated the same process as before, killing the black shadow attacking her. Shueyu's situation was undoubtedly the worst of the 4. Although she was the young master of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce and possessed heaven-defying aptitude, reaching the 3rd Order Origin Returning Realm at a very young age, her foundation and life experiences were incomparable to the other 3 present. When Luo Lan was rescued by Yang Kai, although she was somewhat confused for a moment, she quickly composed herself and realized what her situation was. On the contrary, Shueyu remained in an unconscious state after being rescued by Yang Kai. However, the expression on her face was extremely strange. There was a smile at the corner of her lips, and her whole body seemed to be extremely relaxed, as if she was experiencing something incredibly pleasant in whatever fantasy world she was trapped. Shueyu! Yang Kai put his hands on her shoulders and shook her while shouting. After calling her name 2 or 3 times, Shueyu frowned and opened her eyes, showing a somewhat displeased expression. But the moment she saw Yang Kai standing in front of her, she suddenly smiled and lifted her hand to brush her hair back behind her ear. This was a common gesture for a woman, but performing the act when she had the outward appearance of a man was really a bit disturbing. Fortunately, only Yang Kai saw this, as Enai Guang and Luo Lan were both busy dealing with the black shadows. Shuiyu suddenly asked softly. Did you wake? Huh? Why would I be the one waking up? Yang Kai was confused but quickly shouted sharply. You're the one who should wake up quickly. Me? Shuiyu looked at Yang Kai blankly. Her beautiful eyes filled with happiness and sweetness gradually becoming sober. After taking a moment to recover her wits, she began to look around. At a glance, Shuiyu understood everything, and an obvious look of disappointment filled her face, as if she wished she had not woken up from the illusion just now. There are too many of these things. We can't kill them all, so it's best if we escape. When Guang saw Yang Kai successfully awaken Shuiyu, he hurriedly yelled, and while speaking, he threw the round bead that was emitting soft light into the sky while chasing after it and shouting, Follow me. You go first. This mistress will bring up the rear. Luolan declared valiantly as she took the initiative to defend their retreat. Yang Kai nodded, stretched out his hand to grab Shuiyu's arm, and flew upwards together with her as Luolan followed behind. The group of 4 people flew at an extremely fast speed, trying to escape from this strange place. But the black shadows below chased after them, and from the many ravines nearby, more and more of them constantly poured out, each of them howling madly as they sent out a disturbing energy fluctuation similar to a spiritual energy attack. These attacks were invisible and intangible, and although 1 or 2 of them were not very powerful, with so many black shadows gathered together, the soul fluctuations they gave off shook the knowledge seas of the escaping 4, threatening to drag them down in the bottomless abyss again. However, under the power of Guang and Luolan's artifacts, the black shadows were unable to approach too close and were killed one after another. Suddenly, Luolan, who was responsible for bringing up the rear, called out in alarm, What is? In the next moment, she screamed out loudly, Run! There was clear panic in her voice, as if she had just witnessed something terrifying. Yang Kai stole a quick glance back across his shoulder and was shocked by what he saw. The countless black shadows below had begun to fuse together while pursuing them, like black raindrops all falling towards a single spot. In the blink of an eye, they merged together to form a single massive black shadow that continued to grow at a rapid pace as more and more of the smaller black shadows melted with it. It was as if a pitch-black night sky had formed below them, giving off an incredibly strong sense of oppression. After only 3 breaths, an enormous black shadow had taken shape. As soon as the huge black shadow took shape, it extended 2 long arms from below like massive whips that flew fiercely through the air like bolts of black lightning. Feeling the terrifying power contained in these 2 attacks, Luolan's beautiful face paled, and without hesitation, she bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of her blood essence towards her dagger before throwing it out in a powerful strike. A silent collision occurred as the 2 black arms were temporarily stopped while Luolan's dagger was sent flying. The attacks that the black shadow could send out after its fusion were countless times stronger than those of its smaller, individual forms. Soul-type artifacts were driven by a cultivator's divine sense, and although their power was immense, if they took damage, it would also damage the user's soul. Therefore, when her dagger was knocked through the air, Luolan's pretty face went white and she could not help coughing up a mouthful of blood. Even with her strong first-order origin king cultivation, it only took a single exchange for her to be injured. At this moment, everyone clearly realized the power of these strange shadows. Fortunately, the group of 4 had already managed to rush to the top of the ravine and flew high up into the sky. Not daring to remain, they continued to escape higher. From the depths of the ravine, a terrifying roar sounded at that moment and 2 massive pitch-black arms shot out and transformed into giant claws that grabbed towards the fleeing 4. However, it seemed that their reach wasn't long enough, and the 2 giant claws only managed to catch the air a couple of dozen meters below Luolan, who was the closest to the ground. The next moment, the 2 giant palms slowly retracted and the howling, which had filled everyone's ears until now, gradually subsided, the entire world becoming peaceful again. Guang, who was leading the way, slowed down and finally came to a halt while staring down thoughtfully. These things don't seem to be capable of chasing after us. Yang Kai also noticed the situation. It would seem so, Guang nodded, agreeing with Yang Kai's assessment. But it's better not to make assumptions, we'd best leave here first. The other three nodded quickly and followed after Guang. A quarter of an hour later, the group of four settled down in a safe place again, and although their surroundings were still a deserted plain, at least there were no crisscrossing ravines. After confirming that there was no danger around them, the four stopped to rest and recover. The crisis seemed to be resolved, but even now, everyone felt some lingering fear. The attack they encountered this time was simply too unpredictable. Before entering the underground ravine, everyone had surveyed the surrounding area, and even with two Origin Kings present they still had not been able to avoid being attacked. A truly shocking reality. Elder Luo, how are your injuries? Guang looked at the pale Luolan and asked. It's fine, it only slightly damaged my soul. Luolan frowned and replied. That's good. Guang felt relieved. He thought that with his cultivation at the second-order Origin King realm, even if it would not be smooth sailing in this severed world, it was impossible he would face a fatal threat, but after this experience, he didn't dare think so anymore. If it were not Yang Kai helping him break free, he didn't know how long he would have been trapped in that illusion. Perhaps he wouldn't have ever awoken, and his body would slowly have rotted away, leading to his death. Uncle and I, what were those things? Shuiyu asked with some lingering fear. The various things she experienced in the illusion before had felt completely real, and even after being awakened by Yang Kai, she still failed to adapt to the real world for some time. I don't know. I've never heard of anything like them existing in the severed world. Does Elder Luo know anything? Guang shook his head and turned to Luolan to ask. This mistress doesn't know much about the severed world, but she is certain she has never heard of such strange creatures. It seems that everyone who encountered these things died, so no information about them ever became known. Guang pondered thoughtfully. But that's not a surprise. Judging from the previous situation, those things are extremely proficient at concealing themselves. Even this old master was unable to detect their existence. Fortunately, it seems they can only survive in that dark underground environment. As long as we don't go underground, we should not encounter them again, and we don't seem to have been delayed by much. Inside that illusion, this old master felt like he lived many years, but judging from the condition of our bodies, I'd say only an hour or two has passed. The method those creatures possess is truly terrifying. Hearing what he said, the other three nodded slightly. Elder Luo, you should heal your injuries first. Once you've recovered, we'll set out again. Guang turned and said to Luolan. Then I shall be troubling you. This mistress will try to be as fast as possible. Luolan said gratefully. She did not have any kind of friendship with Guang. So, Guang expressing his willingness to wait for her to recover at this time made her feel grateful. This also verified Guang's character and confirmed he was a good candidate to cooperate with. Guang was stronger than her, so cooperating with him was naturally in Luolan's interest. However, this may also have been related to her being willing to cover their retreat just now. Guang's attitude towards her had obviously become more amicable than it had been when they first set out. Luolan's luck was quite good. She had brought Yang Kai here to the severed world because she wanted to rely on his achievements in the Tao of Space to make exploring this place safer. But as a result, she was also able to obtain cooperation from Guang. If not for Yang Kai, Guang wouldn't have ever invited her to act together. Taking out some healing pills, Luolan sat down and began to tend to the wound on her soul. As for Yang Kai, he was currently gazing towards a spot not far away. He felt that somewhere in the sky over there was a faint space force fluctuation. He could even infer from these energy fluctuations that there was a hidden void crack at that location. It seemed that Luolan was right. This severed world was filled with hidden danger, with many void cracks floating about that were invisible to the naked eye. If someone were to rush through rashly, there was a good chance they would be split in half by the void cracks. What are you looking at? Shuiyu suddenly leaned over and asked softly. He did not know if he was imagining things, but Yang Kai felt that Shuiyu's attitude towards him had changed slightly since earlier. Before, Shuiyu had only paid attention to him because of their strange entanglement, causing her attitude to be somewhat bitter and sweet at the same time. But now, her gaze contained a gentleness that had not been there before. Even when they were escaping just now, Shuiyu held onto Yang Kai's arm tightly and looked completely at ease. Nothing. Yang Kai shook his head. What happened to you? What did you experience in that illusion just now? With your mental fortitude, it should not have affected you so deeply, right? Yang Kai had only asked casually. But to his surprise, Shuiyu turned bright red, as if she was remembering something embarrassing, and snorted loudly. None of your business. Yang Kai nearly choked seeing this and could not help sneering. Forget it. Just pretend I never asked. It definitely must have been nothing good. Shuiyu grit her teeth and glared at him, causing Yang Kai to immediately become uncomfortable and quickly look around for something to divert his attention. It was then that he noticed that Ni Guang had taken out an animal skin map and was frowning as he stared at it. As if looking for something, he would release his divine sense from time to time while comparing his observations of the surrounding terrain with the map. There did not seem to be any clear markings on the map, mostly just a series of intersecting lines as well as some specific locations marked with different symbols. Your Chamber of Commerce possesses a map of this place? Yang Kai looked surprised. Shuiyu grinned and said, What's so strange about that? It is not the first time that people from our Chamber of Commerce have come to this place, so having a map or two is nothing to fuss about. However, the severed world is too big and it's impossible to grasp its complete layout. Uncle and I only has a map detailing a small portion of this place. So that's how it is. Yang Kai nodded. In that case, do you have a clear destination for this trip? We plan to go to a medicine valley where there are spirit medicines and herbs that aren't present in the star field. Legend has it that there are even herbs which are beyond the Origin King grade and can bring back the dead, rejuvenate and prolong a person's life, and some that can even increase the strength of a person directly. Listening to her talk, Yang Kai could not help staring at Shuiyu strangely. What? Shuiyu asked suspiciously. You really don't have any guard up against me at all. It's not like you. Yang Kai smiled. Although they were in a cooperative relationship right now, what Shuiyu revealed was undoubtedly extremely important information that should be kept confidential. She was not the type of woman with a big chest but no brains. Otherwise, she would never have been able to become the young master of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. Her revealing so much to him for no apparent reason really surprised Yang Kai. Hearing what he said, Shuiyu gawked for a moment before seeming to realize something and immediately turning her gaze aside and sneering. What's wrong with telling you? With Uncle and I here, can you even snatch anything from us? The tone of her voice clearly indicated she wanted to move past this. So Yang Kai did not ask anymore. However, upon thinking about it, Yang Kai realized that Luolan's actions this time were a bit too rash. Ni Guang dared to enter this place because he had confidence in his tyrannical strength and because he had prepared thoroughly, while Luolan, on the other hand, seemed to have simply come on a whim together with Yang Kai and didn't understand much about the severed world. In the underground ravine where Yang Kai and the others had just been, an hour after they left, a figure fell from the sky and landed nearby. His whole body was wrapped in a black chi, exuding an evil and violent aura. It was none other than the Origin King who had been paying attention to Yang Kai outside before. After this person landed, he glanced around and, after taking a deep breath, began to cackle wickedly. Very good. He had been here recently. Young boy, this is truly unexpected. Who could have imagined you'd grow to this level after not seeing you for only a few dozen years? If Yang Kai heard this, he would definitely be shocked, since this unknown Origin King actually seemed to know him, and know him quite well at that. Oh! The strange Origin King stopped suddenly, as if he had just discovered something, and turned towards the underground ravine, using his divine sense to survey it. After a while, he let out a burst of wicked laughter and muttered to himself, There's actually such a thing here. Although I do not know what you are, you're useful to this old master. Saying so, he jumped directly into the ravine. As soon as he landed, countless small black shadows sprang out from the crevices lining the ground in all directions and leapt towards him like starving beasts. This man wasn't afraid though, and instead excitedly shouted, "Ha! Good! Good! Come!" Saying so, he summoned a large black flag that immediately released a series of wailing howls. These howls drowned out the scattered cries of the dark shadows, and from the flag, numerous twisted, phantom-like human faces appeared. Forming a series of seals with his hands, the strange master poured his Saint Chi into the black flag and shouted, "Go!" In the next moment, the black flag turned into a giant black curtain that shrouded the surrounding region and, as if they had encountered their nemesis, the small black shadows were easily suppressed and swallowed up. As the black flag swallowed up these black shadows, the aura it emitted became stronger and stronger, while the darkness became deeper and deeper. It seemed capable of swallowing everything in existence, even light. The horrible suction force of the black flag obviously made the black shadows panic, and soon they began to merge together, just like when Yang Kai and the others fled, in an attempt to fight off the black flag's influence. Seeing this scene, the Origin King wrapped in black chi wasn't afraid and instead became exhilarated, calling out, "You even have such a skill, good, good, good. This king's 10,000 soul banner is going to have a feast today. Ka-ha-ha-ha." As he laughed, he stretched out his hand and the black curtain twisted and condensed into a massive, terrifying human-shaped face. This face, however, had countless eyes and radiated an ominous and powerful light. In addition, blood seemed to be overflowing from this face as he released violent and feral roars. As the strange mouth opened, it continued to grow until it spread across and the entire face's surface, while at the same time, a vague human-shaped phantom appeared behind it. The massive black shadow formed by the fusion of countless small shadows naturally didn't sit there waiting to die and quickly lashed out with its two black whip-like hands in an attempt to block the advance of the 10,000 soul banner. A huge cloud of dust and debris was kicked up from the intense shockwaves of the exchange, shaking the ravine and the surrounding earth. However, it was all in vain. The 10,000 soul banner did not fear the huge black shadow's attacks at all, and simply charged forward and bit down on it before raising its head up like a bird which had caught its prey and attempted to swallow it whole. Vaguely, a scream came out from inside the face. The terrifying face of the 10,000 soul banner flashed a look of satisfaction at that moment, and its countless eyes shined with excitement. Goo! It even vividly belched. The moment the huge black shadow was swallowed, the remaining fish that slipped through the net fled into the surrounding crevices, not daring to appear again. They seemed to have noticed that this 10,000 soul banner was their natural enemy, and they were unable to resist it. Upon seeing this, the Origin King, who was still wrapped in black chi, stretched out his hand somewhat unconsciously and summoned the 10,000 soul banner back to him. On the surface, the 10,000 soul banner had not changed much compared to before, but the potency of the wicked aura it exuded was obviously greater. Heh. The Origin King cackled lightly as he examined his artifact, nodding repeatedly. Not bad, not bad. I just came in and already had such a harvest, worthy of the famed severed world. This king is very much looking forward to what comes next. Clearly a bit disturbed in the mind, after talking to himself for some time, the Origin King put away his 10,000 soul banner and with a loud laugh wrapped his black chi around himself tightly and rushed out of the ravine, chasing in the direction Yang Kai and his group had left. Elsewhere in the severed world, Sword Union's elder Chui Hong was desperately urging his artifact to fight off a monster beast that was nearly 100 meters in length and resembled a winged snake. His luck had been quite poor. Just after entering the severed world, he had accidentally entered the territory of this monster beast. And when he was discovered, a fight broke out. The greatest danger in the severed world was the invisible void cracks scattered about irregularly and undetectable to both sight and divine sense. Even an Origin King realm who touched such a void crack would not escape unharmed. The second most dangerous thing, however, was the monster beasts that lived here. The monster beasts here had almost all inherited the bloodlines of ancient variant species, and affected by the strong world principles, they had all grown incredibly powerful. Even if similar monster beasts existed in the star field, the ones in the severed world would generally be at least 30% stronger. The one Chui Hong encountered was a genuine 10th-order monster beast, and from the looks of it, it had obviously inherited the bloodline of the flying feathered python. But as time had passed and the world principles had changed, this monster beast's bloodline had diluted, and it was no longer able to display the full might of its glorious ancestors. If it had, Chui Hong would have died upon meeting it. However, it was nonetheless a 10th-order monster beast, meaning it was equivalent to an origin king in strength. A rare existence. Fortunately, this monster beast did not seem to have broken through to its current level long ago, and as a Sword Union elder, Cui Hong's artifact armor and artifacts were all extremely high-grade, so he did not suffer much damage over the course of his battle, and instead gained the upper hand by relying on various secret techniques. This winged python was over 100 meters in length, bat-like wings on its back and a long, sharp tongue in its mouth. It flew about in an extremely flexible manner, dodging around Cui Hong while ejecting its tongue like a steel whip from time to time, bombarding Cui Hong and causing him significant difficulties each time it landed a hit. After a full 3 hours of fierce fighting, in exchange for taking a rather serious injury, Cui Hong managed to behead the winged python. Standing in place, breathing heavily, his whole body stained red with blood, Cui Hong cursed angrily. After a short rest, he used what little strength he had left to collect the winged snake's body into his space ring. At this moment, he did not have the time to properly process the corpse and could only wait until after leaving the severed world to deal with it slowly. The value of the corpse of a 10th-order monster beast was almost unimaginable, especially its monster core, which had a huge attraction to origin kings. When a cultivator reached the origin king realm, it became extremely difficult to break through because of the limitations placed on them by the Starfield's principles. If a cultivator wished to stride upwards, besides tortuous cultivation for an extended time while comprehending the heavenly way and martial Tao, only rare treasures and powerful pills could enhance their strength. An origin king being unable to break through a single minor realm for centuries or even millennia was a very common occurrence. Because of this, throughout the entire star field, third-order origin kings were extremely rare, and almost all of them were old monsters who had long secluded themselves from the world. After resting on the spot for a while, Cui Hong immediately left, afraid the smell of blood would attract other monster beasts. In his current state, he couldn't fight another intense battle like just now. In another place, Zilong, the sect master of Purple Star, was bringing Zidong through the severed world. He seemed to have a very clear goal and did not stop at any point along the way. Their luck was also good, and they had not encountered any real danger since entering this place, so they proceeded with peace of mind. "Father, does this severed world really host an immortal tree?" Zidong, who was following Zilong, suddenly asked. Hearing the words immortal tree, Zilong's calm eyes suddenly burst with dazzling light, and his long purple hair blew up even in the absence of wind. Nodding slightly, he replied, "Although your father cannot say for certain, the probability is at least 80%. After all, word of the immortal tree's existence was sent back by your granduncle. 2,000 years ago, your granduncle once caught a glimpse of something very similar to the legendary immortal tree, but when he attempted to obtain it, he was seriously injured by the monster beast that was guarding it and was forced to flee, ultimately dying from his wounds." Zidong's face changed slightly as he whispered, "If I recall correctly, Granduncle was supposed to be a second-order origin king, but he was still seriously injured by the guardian monster beast? What kind of monster beast was it? A divine bird, an ancient peacock." Zilong took a deep breath. A divine bird. Zidong couldn't help paling slightly. As long as a monster beast was classified as a divine species, it was clear it was not to be provoked lightly. Every divine beast had heaven-destroying and earth-shattering means, as well as a vicious personality. If such a monster beast broke into the star field, it would likely destroy countless cultivation stars and become a disaster for the entire star field. Zilong then quickly followed up, "In the star field, the name 3 Great Divine Waters is widely known. One is life-revitalizing jade cream, one is the soul-cleansing divine water, and one is immortal source liquid. Among these 3, the soul-cleansing divine water does occasionally appear, but not often, only once every few hundred or thousand years. As for the life-revitalizing jade cream and immortal source liquid, both are things of legend, lost to history, or at least your father here has never met anyone who succeeded in obtaining either of them. Each of the 3 great divine waters has its own unique effects which make them precious treasures that cultivators dream of. The soul-cleansing divine water can wash the soul, purifying and condensing one's spiritual energy. the life-revitalizing jade cream can enhance a cultivator's physique and vitality, a single drop allowing a person to be reborn. However, neither of these two compare to the immortal source liquid. Father, does the immortal source liquid have some kind of relation with the immortal tree? Zidong asked curiously. Haha, naturally they are related. Zilong, as the master of one of the star field's biggest forces, was normally a dignified man, but he became quite amiable when facing his son. After all, Zidong had never failed to live up to his expectations and was the successor he put his hopes on. Please enlighten me, father. Zidong put on a respectful look and showed an appearance of humility. Zilong pondered for a while before he continued. The immortal source liquid is the dew formed by the accumulation of essence over countless years on the leaves of the immortal tree. For the immortal source liquid, regrowing lost limbs is simply a waste. It is a natural miracle elixir that can even bring people back to life. Resurrecting the dead? Zidong looked shocked. If just the trivial dew can have such a miraculous effect, then the immortal tree itself? Humph! If one can obtain the immortal tree and refine it, they can obtain an immortal and indestructible body, with longevity equal to the heavens. What? Zidong was truly shocked when he heard this. Even as Purple Star's young master, he could not help feeling astonished and would have dismissed it as nonsense if it weren't his father who said it. If I can have an endless lifespan, your father will be able to achieve something no one has before. When that time comes, I will surpass the Origin King realm and get a glimpse of the mysteries of the great Emperor's realm. When Zilong said this, his entire figure seemed to radiate excitement and fanaticism. Zidong stared at his father in a daze, not having seen such an expression on his face for many, many years. One could only imagine how powerful the immortal tree's temptation was to his father. Father, does only our Purple Star know about this? Zidong asked again. No. Zilong shook his head, a look of frustration appearing on his face. I'm not certain about others, but Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce must know about the existence of the immortal tree, because 2,000 years ago, your grand-uncle came here with the previous president of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. That's why that old fart and Guang came this time. He must be aiming for the immortal tree as well. Zidong frowned and asked suspiciously, if that's the case, why didn't father bring more masters along? Zilong smiled lightly. This kind of information can't be known by too many people. After all, there is only one immortal tree. Even if gathering more people leads to successfully obtaining it, who will claim ownership in the end? In front of such a supreme treasure, one can only believe in themselves, all others are enemies. Zidong pondered thoughtfully before nodding. This child understands. You are still young and the road ahead of you is still long. Father's purpose in bringing you here this time was to hone your will and expose you to some true dangers, which will be of great benefit to your future growth. I hope you don't disappoint me. This child will do his best, Zidong quickly declared. As the sect master of Purple Star, Zilong had countless children, but Zidong was the one he liked the most. Among his countless children, only Zidong stood out and was thus the only one who received his nurturing. Zidong also understood this well, so he had not dared to slack on his cultivation all these years. Entering the severed world this time was truly dangerous, but it was also a good test. As long as he passed this test, his position in Purple Star would become unshakable. Zidong came to clench his fist secretly as he swore to perform well this time. At the same time, somewhere far away, Xianxia and a group of 4 headed by Guang were advancing through the severed world. They did not encounter much danger on their journey, but also did not gain many benefits, making the severed world seem to not live up its reputation. However, Guang had taken out something that caught Xianxia's eye. It was an artifact that resembled a communication artifact but was somewhat different because it had a pointer on it. Guang had taken it out 2 hours ago and had yet to put it away, moving it from side to side as they traveled. As he moved it around, the pointer would occasionally undergo some subtle changes, and each time it did, Guang would slightly change direction. Luolan was confused and wondered what kind of magical effect this artifact had. secretly guessing that Ni Guang was somehow using it to avoid dangers. But since this was related to another's methods, she knew better than to ask and had to keep her curiosity to herself. Yang Kai, on the other hand, was surprised because he noticed that this artifact was able to detect the location of some hidden void cracks. Whenever the pointer on the artifact pointed towards a certain spot, Yang Kai would be able to sense some obscure space force fluctuations from that direction, and Ni Guang would always avoid it in advance. This was obviously a special artifact that was refined to cope with the severed world's environment, and whoever refined it had most likely also cultivated the Tao of space. Yang Kai was certain of his guess. After all, Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce was a massive super force, so the number of talented people it possessed was immense. It was only natural to assume that some of these talents had cultivated space force. However, Yang Kai also inferred from the sensitivity of this artifact that the person who refined it was far less accomplished in the Tao of space than he was, because this artifact was not able to detect all the hidden void cracks in their surrounding. There were some void cracks that the group passed within a few dozen meters, which Yang Kai was able to perceive clearly. Obviously, the artifact had given no response to these void cracks. When such occurrences happened, Yang Kai was put on the edge, for fear that Ni Guang would inadvertently run into one. Fortunately, nothing of the sort happened along the way, so there was no need for Yang Kai to reveal his secrets to warn Ni Guang to change their route. Sometimes, there would be traces of tears in the air that were clearly void cracks which were visible to the naked eye. These tears were like rips in the sky, permanent features, adding to the dangerous atmosphere of the severed world. And as the group forward, whether it was the visible void cracks or the ones that were hidden, their number was clearly increasing. Yang Kai and the others even saw a few massive, sky-crossing cracks that gave off terrifying fluctuations, making it impossible to determine what lay beyond it. When he saw such void cracks, Yang Kai became quite eager to explore. He clearly felt that this huge void crack very possibly had what he needed: space spirit crystals bred from the void itself. It also seemed to contain the insights he longed for regarding the Tao of space. Either way, Yang Kai felt strongly that if he were to rush into it, he would definitely gain greatly. Unfortunately, he was currently acting together with Ni Guang and the others, so he did not dare leave the team rashly. He could only pass by this void crack for now. In any case, in the severed world, there were many opportunities like this, so he was not in a hurry. Ni Guang, who was leading the way, suddenly stopped, turned his head to look in a certain direction, and called out in surprise. Following his line of sight, the other three in the group soon saw a person lying on the ground about 1,000 meters away. "That's..." Luolan whispered. "His clothes seem familiar. Was it someone who came in with us before?" "It seems so," Ni Guang said solemnly, scanning the figure with his divine sense carefully before his face slightly changed. "But it seems he's already dead." Luolan's pretty face went pale hearing this. Among the cultivators who entered the severed world before, besides Yang Kai, Xueyu, and Zidong, the rest were all origin kings, none of them weaker than herself. However, after just a few hours, they came across a dead body here. It was hard to imagine what kind of attack this man suffered. With his powerful origin king cultivation, he died here, and there were also no signs of struggle in the surroundings, as if there hadn't been a fight at all. In other words, this man had been attacked by something so powerful that he had died without being able to resist. If it had been her instead, Luolan imagined that her fate might not have been any better. She began to rejoice that her luck had been so good. "Should we investigate?" Xueyu pondered for a moment before pointing in the direction of the corpse. "There seems to be something next to his body." Even without her reminder, everyone had noticed that there was indeed something besides the body of this fallen origin king. It was a small coxcomb-like flower that was growing straight up from the ground, and even from 1,000 meters away, everyone could smell its fragrant scent. This aura was calming and refreshing, causing everyone's tight nerves to relax slightly. "What kind of spirit herb is that? Do any of you know?" Ni Guang turned his head and asked. Luolan shook her head wryly, while Xueyu also indicated she did not know. In fact, even Yang Kai, who was an origin king grade alchemist, was ignorant. He had never seen this kind of spirit flower before. He had obtained the true alchemy enlightenment scripture from the Emperor Garden, which not only recorded countless lost pill recipes, but also details about innumerable exotic flowers and plants. It was almost a comprehensive record of all herbs in existence, so in terms of pure knowledge, Yang Kai was confident no one in the star field was better than him. However, Yang Kai had not seen anything like this flower in the many records of the true alchemy enlightenment scripture. Enai Guang frowned and after hesitating for a moment said, "I'll go take a look. All of you stand here and don't move." Confident in his great strength, he did not want to give up the opportunity in front of him, and regardless of what spirit flower this was, just the corpse of the Origin King next to it was a treasure trove. If he could obtain the other party's space ring, it would be a good harvest. "Do you want this mistress to accompany you?" Luo Lan asked. Enai Guang glanced at her and nodded. "Then you should be careful. This mistress certainly will be." Luo Lan responded with a smile before slowly approaching the spirit flower together with Enai Guang. Yang Kai and Shui Yu stood back, paying attention to the movement ahead. The two crossed the 1,000-meter distance quickly, but to everyone's surprise, even after Enai Guang and Luo Lan arrived next to the corpse, there were no signs of danger. Enai Guang looked puzzled and scanned the corpse below him, soon whispering solemnly, "This person was attacked from behind by something and killed instantly. There are 2 bite marks on the back of his neck, similar to those of some snake-type monster beast, a venomous one at that." Luo Lan nodded as she also noticed this, because this corpse was lying face down and the back of his neck was clearly exposed. It was conceivable that this person had been bitten in the back of the neck by something unsuspectingly, then fell to the ground, dying immediately, resulting in this kind of defenseless posture. Obviously, the venom which entered him from his neck was something even an Origin King couldn't resist. "Elder Luo, please take this corpse with you. I'll pick the spirit flower," Enai Guang ordered. "Understood." Luo Lan nodded before proceeding with caution. Instead of touching the corpse with her hands directly, she used her Saint Chi to wrap it up before quickly retreating backwards.